Tamke tu jisha jere zendang injen bata de che pongjong ba se je nang ba ka ve ji pu. Shak je ja be sha la ke san sa do ji chan chi te la na la ta ma pa ma la chi je kam bo. Pa mo dre ba ja wan dong ba ka ju la ma ma na ke san sa ro me chi je yin je pa la na tu son san je pongjong mo ni. Ra sen chu bon mo zon tong de pe sa la ma sha la ke san sa la da so sim je kam ji mo chu so mo war sen je lam de so. Chu lam don ro sinje lab do so la chupa se va sinje lab do so chupa yi sin cha va sinje lab do so. Good afternoon. You in our lunch? Yes. Quickly it is it very fast. Teni ta tren kap sa pa ba nga so chujo na pa la teni chamro. Chamro domba na ya ta teni chamro lab za ta chamro ki pin chamro sina kande yin ba ta so te sine nga ka shi ma shi gi then the ta churo nyingba yin na ri sa pa yin na ri chamro ki domba ta te ki jimsin pin yu so shi na ne pe ya ho yo re then ta ta ke byo yu ba yin de ni te ko la ka shi ma shi yin si.
So this afternoon, then, my friends, are going to speak about the refuge vow and the precepts, the benefits of the refuge vow, and so on. And so there's some older Dharma friends, some newer Dharma friends, and regardless of whether you're old or new, it's always good to really know well about the purpose and the reasoning behind the refuge vow. So I'm going to share that to the best of my abilities today, since we have a translator.
담보 그래도 직장으로 넘바 쉬고야 점로 시바 카레리스나스 담보 점로 넘바 시바다가 다 control스는 잡신도 이니스 나 control스는 진정치기니스 가르치는 거 control스는 지선 로고를 가르치는 거 control스는 잡힌 조고르스나 되네 포로 동하잖아 포로도 동한도 장촌도 자치 땡사번 포원 자치를 땡사바리스 다팅 코한테 자친구 땡사보다 동하지라지 코가 동하지라지 차대요 코와 동하지라는 차들 다 동한 문도 참아 동한 누구요 말 동하들이 존도요 참아 동한 거요 얘는 동한 연구요 했어 예 근데 다 동한 연구요 동하들이 탈거나 다나 cap control스는 되는 탈거를 맞도 이마 타나 이마 강해요 말했어 cap control 되는 탈거 근데 다 다른 하나 좀 담조 준비를 뭐 진짜로 까와서부터 물리 체벌진 던지지 통이 뒤고 갑되기 때문에 그냥 포도나 포장폰도 동하지라니 맛이 다들 한두 로요 봐. 그 한두 로요인데 뒤 탑란데 꽂혔으면 요즘 봐 인데 그냥 다래 담보한테는 그냥 꽂혔으면 잡힌 조스 꽂혔으면 잡힌 조스 꽂혔으면 잡힌 로야 돼 담보다 아 라타지 마기타 포도나 탈고나 되네 뒤 탈파 탑란 게 되네 탑란 나니 칠람 담보도 차가다 칠람 담보도 근데 고조스는 그 잡힌 조네 근데 뒤 때문에 나겠다 고조스는 그래 라파 당 얘기 동다도 되네 뭐 변수는 냠내치네 근데 뒤 때문에 그냥 코아다 거고요 레스 코아다 탈고요 레스 안되는데다 점프 동반데 학경게 되니까 넘버 추진주고 담보 그 칸바는 로고는 칸바데 데메나이시 고스네 안한 거 저기 데메나이시 자고요 되는데去罗宾南去罗宾谁个人的呢？我讲的东西的嘛，因他没法理解。
So first, when we go for refuge, so we first have to understand who we take refuge in. So we go for refuge in the three jewels. We follow the three jewels, and we need to understand why. What's the reason that we follow the three jewels? And the reason we go for refuge is because samsara is an ocean of suffering that is very vast and deep. And nobody wants to suffer. Everyone wants to free themselves from suffering. But even though we don't want to suffer, it always happens. So in order to become free from suffering, we go for refuge. And now we have precious human body. And with that, we have an ability to understand the nature of suffering. And we also have the ability to cultivate a wish to become liberated from suffering. So that is why in the beginning, we go for refuge in the three jewels. So it's in order to become liberated from the suffering of samsara. It's sort of the first method to become liberated. So first we go for refuge in the three jewels, and then we begin to study, we learn about the Dharma, and then we practice the Dharma. And as a result of Dharma practice, we become liberated from samsara. But the refuge vow is like the entrance gate, or like the key to the entrance gate of Buddhist practice, just like the key to a house door. So in order to practice the Dharma, we must have the refuge first. So.
다 콘초스는 잡슨 로스 당보 콘초스는 세이가 되는자 콘초스는 콘초스인데 산지의 콘초 추콘초 겐동 콘초스 근데 산지의 콘초 기바데 다하 고게 베키치 못하고 산지의 콘초 기바데 참아가서 산지 부르부르스 처음에 신도요 와스 얘네한테 당보 간제지는지 산지 control 때는 한 콜 간디진 타겟이죠. 누가는가 간디진 저거리 사람은 저도 연구요 왔어. 내가 가서 진짜 칠레 반지 민반을 지는 거 민반 제발이 거기 나차를 저토고 요리스는 그 과랑도 담볼래 가르친다. 뭐병 가르친다. 에 다치 민게 되는 걸 듬제 가르도. 되는 듬제 될 때는 다고 민티나 거 그거네 네발에 소트고 요사리 사람은 저도 연구요. 코치 민방 개발이 이제 봐서 많이 봐 포기는 레지는 세지는 가서 나거든. 티나이. 근데 산지에 때는 가서 간대지는 코안에 도를 간대때 탈들이 남았어. 산지에 코랑 담보 코랑양 말아서 나기. 보고 심지에 되게 근데 코랑 다라티 네팔리 자사다 름베네 근데 자른 충산은 코랑 통화를 봤어. 코랑 자른 충산은 총. 근데 वजह जैसे लोबियों से या तने को ता लोबियों थरसी ने तने ता लोबियों तेदी कब लोबियों की ता को कोरात ने ता लोंबा ते ने ता रिक्सी ता को नमजन दासर ता ट्रसर ता ची तार मांगो jango yo ba di ma to मांगो jago ni ro ता तो ची लोबियों शियों लोबियों करे ने jang थरसी 제일 숨바 차는 다 tene koran chasa ja tene pugeche jasa zong tene yena ya da koran semba jibu chira yungo yo mane kare je yungo ma se to mo mambo ji koran la hinji de koran la mesa hinji ambo ni koran pinsen samba de hinji chimbo yoro samba hinji chimbo yonde tene koran jaka na na jibo yoro chadin ya bo yoro yena jaka slo ta tong su tong chö ta tong su de tene manya ta o ko ne ba 다 근데 냠 타보 마모 통들이 컨센을 마주 부동하는 거. 힘지 침으로. 근데 그런 semba tipo chira yung go men tipo chira mayong 근데 갑자기 그런 거 따라 릭지 생각 따라 hindi 살 빠져. 잠재 치료. 그래서 다 라마만 보여요. 소팅 저 때문에 라자 간 간들 야고 띵이요. 얘나 그런 누가 쓰바라고 말해. 근데 다마다 그런 학장은 그걸 가서 되는 민정으로 민족으로서 შემ파땡이 나온다. 그 자료가 시동 여러 자료 자사다. 시동 자료 나창도 შემ파땡이 나온다. 그 행복 강연도 상다. 행복 강연 때는 데이터에 많이 그런 러트죠. 그런 러트는 때문에 그런 잡듯이 그런 에 게노게 넘발아. 때문에 다 자와야 러트선도 하세요. 러트들이 다 하세요. 때문에 그런 나는 자와지 곰자 근데 야 잠재 얘기다. 그 친구 망보도 좀 잘은로 근데 그런 게 됐을 때는 허병시 저와 주니시 근데 다도 그런 로 중국문도 그런 근데 신념 자녀세 신념은 다마트니 그런 까와진 다마트니 그런 거네 맞으면 유튜브에서 용문 유튜브가 집도 유튜브 또 바차도 유튜브 이런도 같은데 파타서 성어 파타다 그 탐지 파타네 아 그런 상계입니다 상계는 그 도지딘도 소다 손에 든 도지딘은 되는 못 봤죠 상계를 봤어 도지딘 손에 드는 아 수를 두들 쇼가든 나나나 그들이 그런 상계 말이지 상계에서는 다고 가르쳐 상계에서 다때 동다데 상계에서 다고게 뒤주바다 뇽문 봤어 파다 다 단지 나시베 단지 참 없다 헐 가르다 파다 근데 다 저기 다 코로나 다 투모 많이 받는 코로나 담분 인기지요 이 인기에 대한 되는 코로나 공장 돈이 돈도 알아다 인기에 다 돈이 인지 다 이미기 때문에 내 돈 차창 돈 되는 단지 참 하시네 근데 때 타마 가지고 통지 파다네 다 코로나 상지에서 다 상지에서 저기 다 코로나 그 담분 인기 요바데 다때 공포도 소리더니 될 때문에 진비 심피시라더니 상인지 상주선 유용수도 같으니 거야 지에서도 말이 테리 라 연주민이다 고 카마데 상주 심 차창도 다 그런 톱을 해서 네 지에서도 상수도 가는 용부 주가다 시주도 때 파고 차디 파다 지에서에 다 언니 인지 상주지 심데 용수도 저거처지 시랍담지 용수지 대다더니 파드 파다바도 용팅 함기 용수 제바 텔레테니 뭐 맹글이 산지에 이다 근다 와스 드리스 에 인디 다 나라서 텔레티나 이는 가서 엔티나 인지 되는 거 로프고 민방 충분 개발 때는 저는 민로 변선이 지난 한 개고 처를 법교 야고지나 지난 민방 개발 처를 때 티나 이는 가서 텔레티나 그 상지 그 유장 어 짭 세는데 짭 터야 미바데 니니 거요 그래서
Um, so we want to become liberated from samsara. So therefore we go for refuge in the three jewels. And so first we have to understand who are the three jewels. So there is the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, and the Sangha jewel. And first of all, it's really important that we understand the Buddha jewel, who the Buddha really is. And of course, we all know about the Buddha. We always say Buddha blessed. We speak about the Buddha. But we need to also understand deeper how the Buddha can actually benefit us so that we become liberated from the suffering of samsara. So it's just like you're sick and you want to find a good doctor who can heal you. So if you do your research and look at which doctor can heal you, you will look for someone that has a lot of experience and who has a good education and also has had some good results. So then all of that together, then you will feel if somebody possesses all these qualities, you will feel that I might get better if I see this doctor. So it's not enough that the doctor has a good education and knows what he's doing. There also has to be some kind of result, some kind of experience of like what actually has he done and help people get better. And so it's similar with following the Buddha. The Buddha knows the way to liberation himself because he himself was a samsaric sentient being in the beginning, just like us. So he was a person born in the present day in Nepal, close to Lumbini. He was born into a kingdom as a prince, a crown prince, ready to take on the crown one day. So he was born into wealth and a very prosperous life. And so as he grew up in the kingdom, he also perfected all the different arts. There's these different kind of skills one had to learn during that time, like archery and basically warfare, different kinds of fighting skills and so forth. And he became skilled in all of them. He perfected them actually very quickly. Eventually, after he grew up, he got married, he had a child, but he was never really happy, and it was not because of lacking anything, but he had a lot of compassion. And even though everything was very nice in his palace, when he once went out into town, he saw a lot of poor people and sick people, dying people, and that made him very sad. It actually was unbearable for him, that sadness that he felt because of his great compassion. So even though he had everything, he couldn't bear the thought that other people were suffering like that. And so during that time, there was kind of like a Brahmin religion, and he consulted many Brahmins and asked them different questions and instructions, interpretations of what is happening, how to practice, how to overcome it, and so on. And he didn't find a satisfying answer there. So eventually he decided to find his own way, and he developed a very strong renunciation, a real repulsion with samsara, and he ran away from the palace. And he ordained himself as a monk. So he cut his own hair, he became a monk, he took his own vows, and he went into the forests to practice, to meditate. And along the way, he would meet other Brahmins, different rishis, and meditators, and he would ask them questions about meditation and learn from them. But nothing really satisfied him. He didn't find a real answer in that way. And so eventually he found his own way of meditation, and through his practice he was able to, it was a practice that ultimately purified all of the obscurations in his mind, all of the afflictive emotions, all the karmic imprints. And one morning when he was sitting under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, he attained complete enlightenment. And that was the point where all the obscurations, and that is mainly self-grasping, were purified. And it was also the fruition of his great compassion. He realized the true meaning of emptiness through his long meditation practice. So, and he realized how things really are. So really what happened is that the compassion that he already had before just increased more and more until there was it couldn't grow any higher, and he attained enlightenment. And so then he was given this name, the Buddha, which is Sangye in Tibetan. And so Sangye means, Sang means to have purified all the obscurations, all the afflictive emotions, so have cleared away or purified. And then Ye means vast or expansive. So his bodhicitta, his compassion, his wisdom became vast, like space. And so this is how he got his name, the Buddha or Sangye. And because he was an ordinary person like we are before, he showed us that we can also do it. If we practice, we can also become Buddhas. Just like if you want to become a doctor, if you actually go through all the education and you learn it all and you get the experience, you also will be a doctor. And so similarly, if we study, if we learn, if we train, we can also become a Buddha. And so this is now why we go for refuge in the Buddha, because he has the actual power to protect us. So.
담보는 공 투모 많이 닌지지도 닌지 삼닌지 핀심도 대 가르치는 콜 투모 담보는 산닌지 되어서나 Teko chiwa huma ni koran tso mambu sa riba jen tambo chiwa huma chiya tsira mambu na tini sinji yin na tini pimpa mambu che te tabu mambu che tsa tso mambu sa tsita riba mambu kyan tso mambu sa tini ti tabu tara koran jarse chan de tini timo ma yin pe hingi sa hingi yu de ba koran ka hobyon kari sinama apsan hito ya tini tang kowa la nimjong do kowa la nimjong tso tini ko tambo hingi ni koran tso yor 상기요 말이 담보는 퀄리티 지 인다 만다가 그래요. 대다 인다 만다 크지는 요거스. 다때 지와 한번 싸고 수남 아주 수남세 도와 수남세 도 하고 다다라. 나라서 남주 수남세 뭐도 저체 정도는 수남 지정 시료. 담배 축은 나는 이제 수남 지정 시거든. 뭐든 인지 지정. 이해나 핀센터 제와 지정. 다 인지다 제와 핀센 친구는 뭐들 수남 친구요. 따레스. 뭐들은 맞아 쳐 시당 쳐 두차 쳐 하도 쳐요나 이 파다는 지 내가 용본의 있는 거 요나야 용거 전에 다 될 주는 먹게 못 보였다 담부추도 만들거든요 먹게 못 보여서 수나 많이 봐 수나 많이 버티 먹게 못 보여 닝게다 핀세 요들이 되잖아 수남 요 다리에서 나저때 우중력하게 담보는 hin지 이나 만다고 요 수남 요 다리에서 수남 사발 때네 다른 within koran yin the manao onjo sum de ba le jim de yi chi sim jin na sam de yin ji ni ran yin yu ge ye sha ge hu su na sa ma sa de de jin da jin yu de sung ge le si de da xiong chun de le yang
Ah,
de xiong chun de de yi de xiong chu
Shunju.
da de na ne da de yang jam de xi ran de ba ma de yi na yang dan chu chu de
Mhm. Um, so, so we have said that the Buddha had already to begin with, before he attained enlightenment, the Buddha already had a very special compassion, a really unique wish to benefit others. And so why did he already actually have that? It's because in a previous life, in previous lives, he already accumulated a lot of merit and he already purified many obscurations. So already in previous lives, he wanted to benefit beings, and that is why in this life, he was first of all born as a prince due to that merit, and he also possessed great compassion. For example, whatever he tried to learn at a young age, he would understand it, know it, or master it immediately, quickly. And so he cultivated renunciation and compassion as a result of his great merit that he already had. And he was not yet enlightened, but he had a lot of merit that he brought with him from a previous life. That was unlike most people's compassion. It was really a great compassion. And so this is really the way we should understand the meaning of merit. Because often we think that, for example, when we see a rich person, we think that, oh, this person must have a lot of merit. But actually, the real sign of possessing merit is being very compassionate and having great love for others and wanting to benefit them. And for example, on the other hand, if someone has a lot of pride and gets angry easily, has a lot of many desires and is very jealous, that's actually a sign of not having a lot of merit, even though it may seem that they do quite well in some of their activities. There's a lot of negativity in their minds that is really contrary to the Dharma and a sign that there's a lack of merit. So a sign of merit is great compassion and the wish to benefit others. For example, there are some children who already bring that with them into their lives. Some little children have great compassion for others, and that's a sign that they have merit. So that is really what set the Buddha apart. It was his great compassion and also belief in karma So these are signs of merit. If we have compassion, if we believe in karma, if we have love for others. So in terms of just understanding merit, this is really what merit is. So.
네, 어찌돼 영어야 가지고 가라타 상계 생비 신반이 용수제 말이 신반이 저 따와서 봤다 저 니바서 봤 저 따와서 봤는데 휘탐지더니 휘탐지 내로 용수도 친 친바들더니 돈 담는 바 내로 용수 친바들 저 따와서 친바스 저 니바서 봤는데 오 가라타 코와 냐된 콘데기 휘탐지 드니 나 줄을 랑틀을 잡아다 빼는 거 줄을 랑틀은 도진의 랑틀을 야는 거 도지의 땡의 공원이도 저도 참만 공도 참만 같은 통통도 빼대다가 드니 렌데 운적을 취 저게와는 레벨되어 좀 게와는 레벨도나 도드는 다 생긴게 대독 탐지 끼끼끼는 힌트 보여res 직딩게 노주고 취탐지 노주고 취탐지 끼지지는 힌트 봐 그랬더니 저 따와서 그 침바스 근데 대답은 침바니 요바 텔띠네 근데 되게 때문에 아마 담배 주시는 거라 담배 주 근데 담배 주세야 되다 산지기 때문에 침바니 때문에 담배 주도 마송이야 되다 아주 담배 주세야 주도 돼 자고 요새 잡는 주도 주도 코로나에 돈 담배 주 당하다라 양 알아서 주 코로나지 내로 때문에 다 주당이야 다른 알아서 냄새 빠나 그때 야버 주 소용고 요런 남바로 가슴시야 요런 너들은 나 산지기 송이야 버티는 거지 주세요 담배 주세
And then so the Buddha possessed great wisdom and knowledge, and so that is basically twofold. He had knowledge of things, of how things are, the nature of things, and he knew everything that exists. So he knew the extent of phenomena, and so he understood the nature of the universe, the world, what it all is composed of, what it all is. And that is what he then taught in the form of the Dharma. So he knew everything within this world, and also the state of liberation, of nirvana. For example, he knew what leads to what, how things arise. He saw how virtuous actions lead to happiness and how non-virtuous actions lead to suffering. So he saw and understood the happiness and the suffering, the experience of all sentient beings. And then this knowledge is what he imparted on sentient beings. He taught the Dharma. This is what we call the Dharma jewel that we go for refuge in. So the Dharma is has many different aspects to it. There is the Dharma that teaches on the ultimate nature of reality, of how things really are. There's also the Dharma, for example, that teaches the workings of karma, cause and effect. There's different Dharma teachings. And all of these teachings were taught by the Buddha. So that is the Dharma jewel that we go for refuge in.
부추세는 다다라페나 민바도저기 고란저기 니 민바케바도저기 니 고란저기다 냠냠이 되는 거라서 막짜롱 다 참아 뭐다마 해게요 해는 비야냐도 네 치가 참아 연전전나요 참아 마팅도 비야냐 대도 소용도 되네 델레티는 민 법령시 디테일 안 법령시 오르와 네 대답 취시가 대답 나 상계게 니 림반이 취시 림반이 밑에 가마 없지세가 없지세니 니 델레티는 니 가서다 디테니 가라 상계게 띵야지 치들랑서 잡선저 센서디 취 잡선저 그냥 취 법령시 인지 냠냠내치기 인지 lobjosen oh ta 공주 레줌제 근데 돈당은 돈당 빈바 내로 소마티나 띵게 데 lobjosen oh 근데 공주도 렌제도 돼 가서 막 신네 되네 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 가서 호와도 동한 조르스 되네 추데 람타블리스 람가드니 도니 알레고스 텔레고 요로스 데이터 추데 어 추데는 띵게 저기 되네 빨랑내에서 띵가 띵나 이스 lobjonsi 띵가 냠니스네 띵가 준제 모비요스 맞아 텔레테네 띵 타추리 잡스노나 니 프로코 요세야 띵가 맞아 맞아 티 고조는 잡슨 로빈 시는 나랑 내가 가야 맞아비치 고조는 그냥 팀도 있어서 된전 말이 나랑 티 고조스 고조스는 달아 띵가 lobjonsi는 냠니스 추데 산지에 따라 나서 얘기인다 얘네 추데 lobdem로 Then I love Johnson, ya Renate with a tea nice. Renate Takare, provision, or the Domali is treat of Johnson, Ambichi, Tomargiva, Partekiva, Hamargivas, and the tube of your chambers in the data and Java Chamber Toya. Yamin Chung Johnson and Java Chung Toya. And Lord the Napochu and Java chat is on the Titani. Jumde Kama Kansan, then the Tomargiva, Pardeyangiva, Tamayangiva, the Sungu is and Don.
So the Buddha, as we said, is like a skilled physician, a doctor. And so a doctor, when a doctor first learns, or often after they have learned actually, they may write like a textbook, everything that they know. So they write some like different like explanations on the different like body parts, like the channels and the winds and the blood flow and how it all works, and the different joints in the body. There's some anatomy that will tell us this part is here, that part is there. So there's this like medicine kind of textbooks that we can then study, we can learn, so we know everything about medicine. And so the Dharma is just like that. It's like as the Buddha, like a skilled physician, wrote this textbook that he then passed on to us. And it's basically his teachings of the two truths, the relative and the ultimate truth. So we go for refuge in the Buddha, and then we go for refuge in the Dharma, which are the Buddha's teachings. And going for refuge in the Dharma means that you actually practice the Dharma. You learn, you study, and you practice the Dharma. What you learn is the relative truth on karma and the ultimate truth on how things really are, the true nature of things. For example, if you learn about the Dharma, you realize that, oh, if I understand karma, if I follow it, I will become liberated from the suffering of samsara. So the Dharma becomes your path and you have a destination. If you follow that path, you will arrive at a certain destination. So if you do what you should do and abandon what you should abandon, you practice according to the instructions in that Dharma textbook, then there will be a corresponding result. And that is why we attain liberation if we go for refuge in the Dharma. And so that means that we also have to do our part. It's wrong to think that I'm going for refuge in the Dharma, so the Dharma somehow will come and take me and protect me, and I don't really have to do anything. The Dharma will just take care of me. That is obviously not how it works. You also have to do your part. You have to practice the Dharma. So you can see it this way: the Buddha is like the teacher, and the Dharma is like your textbook. But you are still the student, and you have to learn it yourself. You have to study and practice if you want to be liberated from samsara. It is that the Dharma is virtues in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. So in whichever way you practice it, there will be a corresponding result, meaning that if you practice the Dharma really well, there will be a great result. If you practice the Dharma a little bit, there will be a small result. So there will be a corresponding result depending on what you do with it. So that is also what is meant with that quote from the sutras: the Dharma is virtues in the beginning, middle, and end.
근데 쓴바 참 쓴바도 겐동 저 겐동을 잡죠. 다 겐동 시바테 가르치는 겐동 시바테 다 산제의 추고는 전에 근데 냠내세는 때가 다스 응원에 산제가 로마 지gin이 있으니 냠내세는 다 신이들은 맞다 다 겐동 배나 법라는 거는 되게 법적으로 배때다 나한테 되게 냠내시기 있다 켈링이 되니까 배나 담보 장도 좀 많아 오셔네 당마 켈링 거다 나 고조스는 잡치기니 고조스 진정 지기니 켈링 되네 고조스 진정 차나 되네 겐도 차가 나 겐도 때는 내세 많아요 뒷받침비 겐도 야 뒷받침 겐도 야 뒷받침비 겐도라야 다배 뒷받침 온도 전에 배나 사초스 봐 다 기내색 다운 잠버양 다 사나도 기타 뒷받침 보다 겐도 차가 되네야 내 담보 방아 잡슨 전에 되네 추추 냠내시 법정스 배서 시인바 소에 맞춰야 되네 겐도 고조 차가 teneya pikpa chungolaya tarangasa nyingti depalaya pena dachomba pena dachomba sharupa monga po kunga ta pet khanso kitne tikpa dachomba koma poldo kitne gendo ya khanso le tambo bajis njone titene teneya tikpa niti de log teneya chunya misi lobjonsini ta de tamke ya gendo chagar lo dena koncho sumne chap sonne nyamnesi tsama gendo de es gendo 다 대다우네 겐돈데라 caption chinis 다 대로드나 겐돈데 나기다라 추조노 치차 람조 람다라 쭈데 남이 봐 겐돈데 람조스 예 근데 요 아가 로사데 가노 산지지 공판토보다 로사데 산지지 공판 아데 로어 갑라 란지 고로 란데 가르치 뭔데 람 로디다 람 노로 왔다 그래서 만화와치 람가 스탄 로니 고 도데 겐도 잡 겐도야리 마가 게베히니 차고요 겐도도 게베히니 되는 마게 겐도 잡 겐도 잡 고조나 로예스 된 람만화와치 따다 람가데 치니도스 추든 따다 로스디 추난 따다 로고 카토 랩사 가와레 산지치 고파토예스 대답을 듣는 거죠. 고쳤음 잡힌 거 그쯤지 들으더니 뭐요래서 걔네들 들은 거죠. 점도 좀 봐셔서 아 고쳤으면 잡힌 거 같은 조사기 요 노당도 좀 되지 그래서
And then the third jewel is the Sangha jewel. So we go for refuge in the Sangha. And so once we take the refuge vow, we enter the gates into Dharma practice. So we become a student, a follower of the Buddha. So a follower of the Buddha is a Sangha member. For example, if you enroll in a school, you become a student, a pupil, and then you commit to the studies. And so similarly, when we take the refuge vow, we commit to Dharma practice. We become followers of the three jewels, which is a commitment to practice the Dharma. And so then one has become a Sangha, oneself has become a Sangha. And there's different kinds of Sanghas. There's the Sanghas of the Mahayana, of the Theravadan tradition, and so on. There's different, and even within the Mahayana, there's different Sangha, kinds of Sanghas. For example, there is those Sangha who are the kind of higher beings and not ordinary beings. For example, like Bodhisattvas, like Chenrezig and Manjushri and Vajrapani and so on. And then there's also the Sangha within the Mahayana that are ordinary beings or beginning practitioners, and those who just start out in their Dharma practice, who are Dharma practitioners. They are also Sangha. And then there is the Theravadan Sangha, for example, there's the Arhats, there's in the past, we've had beings like Shariputra and Moggallana and Ananda, disciples of the Buddha, who were all Dharma practitioners. They were all Sangha. So all of that together is the jewel of the Sangha that we take refuge in. So the Dharma is the path, and the Sangha is our guide, our companion along that path. And the destination is the state of enlightenment, the state of Buddhahood. So if you want to get to Buddhahood, you need a path, and you need to take the correct path. There's many different other paths too that are not the correct paths. So we need to make sure we don't stray onto a mistaken path. And that is why we have the Sangha. The Sangha is also our spiritual friend, our teacher, who guides us on the correct path that leads directly to the state of enlightenment. So that's the purpose of the Sangha. They are our guides along the path. And so these are the three jewels and the reasons why we take refuge in the three jewels. And so that is what we should understand today when we take the refuge vow.
나도 controls는 잡선 좋네. 근데 controls는 잡선 좋아하니나 근데 나도 잡선 집이 게임이스야. 잡선 집이 게임이. 잠도 너무 맛있잖아. 다 잡선 집이 텔레비전 잡선 집이 게임이스. 근데 잡선 집이 게임이나 근데 대답을 양을 쳐줘도 잠도 domba 나를 잠도 domba 쉬어스. 잠도 domba 때 근데 잠도 밥자 다음도 소용 거여서 근데 대나는 밥자나나 배나 저도 주야 냠는 지고야다. 양 말한게 papanza, gabza, the do young the Pandona Carison with the Sina, Tanki, Ponchosum Chamdo was, Ponchosum Chamdo. Then Yanda give me te Namta Hani Yinda, the Japson Roa, Maino, Japson Mainos, Pambachula Japnoa, taking super sentan jar, taking super sentan. Gendon and the Japsonwa, Matiki and Robami, he song. 다들 너 냥인데 봐라 들으시는 거 왔어. 다 좋은 거 알아서 본초스는 잡수 송아이나 본초스는 잡수 송아이나 얘는 직딩 벌라 소리 잡수 거야 이 말이지. 본초스는 잡수 나스 직딩 벌라 나 나나 인다세 직딩 벌라다. 정보다 디어진다. 드네 벤나 럴네 벌라다. 아 신나네 벌라는 야 작전 팀배 요데 봐. 니반 팀배 요데 봐. 좀 맞지. 센터랑 문코 키대야. 그래서 점도 잡선론이 또 좋은 거예요. 주바프니 당 등한 때 잡선론이 또 좋은 거데. 된 거예요. 말해서 고조 산지를 고조는 잡선만 돼서 잡선론이에요. 말해서 산지를 잡선론 아니나 담배줄을 잡선나 세긴 누퍼 센터 자세 나 담배줄을 잡선론은 체와 방거 신기기는 체와 신기기는 어떻게 지야요. 말해서 체와 방거 누진 체를 선바방 겐동을 잡선이나 로마텍기는 로마자스 로마텍기는 로마텍기 당하는 지금 레진들의 이치입니다. 양고 좋으면 이치도 좀 이변죠. 근데 저렇게 단위의 지하용 말이 예술 거. 나도 돈다 예열 뭔가 제 산지에 근데 잠도 돈바세 가르치는 양 잠도 돈바. 그러나 그 증증도 저 줘야 돼. 그러나치 돈만 많은 거야. 양 그러나 지 신인자여야다. 그러나 그 진족만 보여야다. 그쪽 치도 말해. 가르치는 데 잠도 돈바 있으나 나랑 좋지. 코로 동한테 단도이 벌로 나 코와를 잘 산지지 공방 톱고 선도 노용도 다 대기치도 야발이스 가르스는 한 늦지에는 되게 된다 맞지 된지 초를 늦지 초를 말이세요 가르 지 초를 있어야 제방이나 산지지 공방 톱을 그지 구글이 라테 탐킹하겠다 상기야 문제차 따라 지 맞춰 늦지는 지금은 늦지는 지금 말이세요 돼 가르치는 가그 대 가서 제방이나 치랑 따라 농학이 쥐었다. 농학이 쥐. 농학이 쥐었다고 요자 나처럼 때 맞이라. 빼나 따라 산재를 잡수는 직진 부사를 잡수 맞췄어. 가르치는 잡수 맞잖아. 뭐뭐지 센더가 치더니 센더가랑 계속 협상 팀비 치도 저쪽 돈 팀에 저쪽 돈 팀에 쪼네. 근데 나랑 잡수 치고 돼서 이 플랫폼이. 이나 딜라 탐지가 좁투거만 내가 팀버 로바치 투거 이나야 그 코스 코란서인지 디팀블라스 디 코란서 주는 닝기미바 닝기미바 인지 삼사야 마가 근데 좋아이나 누체야 지지 로보잖아 야보지를 두고 마이나야 두고 지 그래서 코란서인지 동화를 타르고 동화는 있어 동화를 요자 나 동화를 거친 돈 투거는 코 동화를 타고 대신에 산지가 다 되지나지나 보도는 다 대마지나 근데 맡았어요. 대답이 김치 투지되는 소리. 나한테 자세 라네는 요로. 양양 코를 좀 찍고 있는 게 쓰기 자판이스. 응. 호랑이 코 동하기 챙겨 봐. 인데 되는 가서 줘야 돼. 파제리 좀 투기가 많이 되는데 산지 티고 좀 투기. 되는데 산지를 그냥 잡죠. 근데 이제 김치한테 잡수 많죠어요. 동다 되는 거예요. 그래서 다 담배 취라. 잡수는 신기 인체 방법에 때 가래. 오, 나 동화를 하고 얘는 동화기 쭉 가래. 동화기 이제 심지는 세웠어요. 심지는 우체기야. 동화기 이제 차. 동화기 이제 차대 이상 어쩌나 심지는 세웠지 요만. 동화 이승주원 얘는 싸웠던 세웠지 요만. 예수. 아, 겐도를 잡으면 더 못해 봐도 더 맞아 세야 돼. 상계기 때 맞춘 않은 가래지는지 리다 소다 리스튜브스 때 리스 소다 리스튜브만. 가래지는 레짐데 캐 만나와 있는 가 레짐데 캐리 나 도사대야 동아래 보고 동아 저거는 그 레짐데 캐리네 레짐데 저 개와서 저 디바 파방 거 레짐데 이치 민족지 간 제와 땡 사포치 차 용이나 그냥 나라 가니까 나라 생기다라 시락 당 렘데 이치 세야 되나 또 충충하면서 요 말이야 충충하면서 미서 내 미빠차야 내서 이어던 찐그 전도를 찐그 저축초를 찐그 전도 요자 같이한테 보고 타니고 맞으네 야고 그래서 가르스는 가서 두고 주나 치랑에 게버 짜와 데버 지어 되더니 찐로야 니가 요자 어떻게 그 정보서요 말해서 군다한테 있어 아 치랑에 주를 싫었던 hin지 렌데를 이치 야채 뭐 땡사 보이는 지나 두고 주나 돼요 말해서 이런 와서 내 담보바 니가 친구 요 인상 근데 됐으면 다 되겠는데 그 말이지 김치 드실 때는 순고 요사리에서
Mm, so then, when we go for refuge in the NS3 jewels, so we go for refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we take a vow. So there's some precepts or commitments of things that we should practice and things that we should give up. It is said in the Great Nirvana Sutra that at the Sangha, it speaks about the precepts of the refuge in the three jewels. So a perfect Sangha who has taken refuge in the three jewels should refrain from certain actions. So once we have taken refuge in the Buddha, it says we should not take refuge in any worldly gods. For example, gods like Indra or Brahma and so on. Or there may be some kind of mountain gods, some kind of elemental elements, gods who live in the elements and so on that are very powerful. They may have some power, and that's also why sometimes people make offerings to them and they seek their help. Some people follow them. But once we have taken refuge in the Buddha, we should not go for refuge in any of these worldly gods. And once we have taken refuge in the Dharma, it says we must give up harming others, other sentient beings. And once we have taken refuge in the Sangha, it says one should not associate much with like those kind of it says tirtikas, which are those who hold some kind of extreme non-Buddhist view, so to speak. So, for example, those who do not at all believe in karma or the three jewels. So we should not fall too much under their influence. And so the meaning of all that is that when we take refuge in the Buddha, and we shouldn't take refuge in other gods, it's not because the Buddha wants to have all the disciples. He doesn't want to go them anywhere else, and because he wants to be famous. But the reason is it's for our own sake, so we can become liberated from samsara. So that's why the Buddha gave those precepts, and he said that, so this is what you should do, and this is what you should not do if you want to attain liberation. So he just laid out the causes for enlightenment and those things that prevent you from attaining enlightenment. That's the whole purpose of making these rules. So it's not like actually making these rules, but he said that if you do this, then that will happen. So if you do this, then there will be suffering. So therefore don't do it if you don't want to suffer. And so it's the same with saying don't take refuge in any worldly gods, not because he didn't want people to go somewhere else, but it's because those worldly gods are also in samsara themselves. So maybe because they are powerful, they may be able to help us with some smaller requests, but they cannot provide us ultimate protection, or they cannot help us become liberated from samsara because they themselves are in samsara. And also they do not have perfect compassion. So they may be your friend if you make offerings to them and you please them. But if you do something they don't like, they may also cause a lot of harm. They're just like a normal person. They are also within suffering. And so they cannot help us become ultimately liberated. So that is why we go for refuge in the Buddha, we don't go for refuge in any worldly god. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, there's also a verse on that, and the verse on refuge that says, like if those who are bound in the prison of samsara themselves cannot protect us, so those who are bound in the prison of samsara themselves cannot protect us, and therefore we should not seek refuge in them. So that is why we only take refuge in the Buddha. If we want to become liberated from suffering, and we follow these instructions. So we don't take refuge in worldly gods, and also we don't want to create the cause of suffering, which is harming others. And that is the essence of the Dharma. Once you have taken refuge in the Dharma, you give up harming other sentient beings with your body, speech, and mind. And so the Buddha gave these instructions to all beings, and that it refers to really all beings without any bias. So meaning we don't harm a single sentient being, because that would go contrary to the workings of karma if you want to avoid suffering. So if you want to become free from suffering, then you follow the workings of karma. And even someone who does not believe in karma, there's people who don't believe in karma, they may not have this great intelligence or wisdom, it still functions for them. So suffering still happens. Whatever action we engage in, it will lead to a certain result. And so now that we have some trust in karma, we have some trust in karma, we have some wisdom, but it's very small. And because it's not so strong, it can easily be lost. Some causes and conditions, anything can happen that changes it again. So there's a danger that in the beginning that we lose our wisdom, that we lose our belief in karma. And that happens when that cause of virtue becomes more and more destroyed. And that is why we have to protect it, because if we do not protect it, if we do not practice virtue, and if we don't give up non-virtue, then there is a danger that slowly we also will lose our belief in karma and our wisdom. And so that's the reason why the Buddha gave these teachings.
뭐 controls 다르듯 좀 빠져. 다 드르자 controls 차 소화이나 nga 산지 고초도 차 소화이나 되니 아 산지지 되니 산지에다 얘네 산지 그 sab다 되니 산지 군다 산지에게 다 건다 창가 되니 산지게 랑 산지게 주팅 다 남바가 서로 된 남경하고 상징무진데 희진 그 겹치 그래스 아 겹치 산지 수치는 빼야 보여요. 전에 따라 산지의 송 추를 잡은 중에는 다 산지 송 주내로도 또 되는 인대이 다 말하지 진앙대가 따라 산지의 되는 송이 추담비 보도가 줄여도 봐. 다 이게 줄도 여러 예가 줄도 요대 봐. 근데 산지의 송랍 탐비를 깨이 가르는 제가 요 말이 깨이 가를 때는 요나에 직발이 되는데 되는 산지의 송랍 탐지를 산지의 추다고 되는 하게 느끼지는 되는 때는 그 겹치 빼 사친 못 적어 그랬어. 남경은 그때 중직 따라 연구도 중 가려 연구도 좀 남경 안에서 다 나주 그때 냠는지야 저당 남주 소속이 대 법연스야 대 그래서 그게 필요 지금마다 뒤 그게 맞아서 뒤 공신라고 했더니 근데 산지 그 송랍서 그게 지금마다 산지 그 송, 다랑 안에서 냠는지야 그때 냠는지야 그 대비나리 법연스야 그 나주 법연스야 대비나리 니트스 그게 맞지 ben ting cha la yo ya no ta ma lam ga da ta sol ma yu yo ya tu chi de tu tan chia yo te san ji chu rang li chu ta ni pe te pe ke chim ta chim te ku yap chi go re ta na nga su ti song go re ne a nga pya ta ma chu bu chi nga ni yi gi zu su chu te che te la ku pa chi son san ji ge ta song ni 단 균형만 되는 산재 공 뚱을 쓴 거예요. 이게 탐지 되는 공 이게 좀 되는 손에 생긴 동치기 있어. 된 대세 텔레 그바 지선도 된 상황이 되는 산지가 송락 대법용 나주 법대도 그바 빼지고. 지한도 산지 건다 tan가도 약고 지여라 빼 디나이 송락도 디나이 그바 집어지고 그래서
So these were the things that we have to give up when we take refuge in these rituals. Then there's also things that we should adopt, that we should do when we take refuge in these rituals. So when we take refuge in the Buddha, we show great respect to the Buddha himself, but even just representation of the Buddha, like a part, even just a part of a statue or a tanka or a stupa and so forth. So different representations of the Buddha. For example, how we can pay respect is by prostrating, for example. So we respect the Buddha's form, or the Buddha himself, and then even the representation of him. And then when we take refuge in the Dharma, we respect the Buddha's teachings, but also any representation of his teachings, for example, the scriptures. And that goes for any language, no matter what language those texts, those Dharma texts are in. It's really important to respect those texts and consider them as really very precious. Often there's kind of a fault kind of that people that people follow, and that is like generally speaking, we don't have a general sense of respect for any kind of books. We just don't have the habit of respecting books in general. And so then we bring that habit also to the Buddha Dharma, and then we don't respect the Buddha's books. And so that's actually one thing that's it's important to be mindful of these Dharma books that we use for our study and practice. We shouldn't step over them or just have them lie around on the floor, for example, somewhere where we can step over them. And so it's because the Buddha himself actually had said that in the degenerate age, he said in the final 500 years, I will appear as the Buddhist scriptures, as the Dharma scriptures, and therefore you should look after these scriptures. So the Buddha said that in the degenerate age, we have not met the Buddha himself in person. The Buddha is not there in person now, but he said he will appear, he will still be there, but in the form of the scriptures, the Dharma scriptures. And so therefore we should pay great respect to the Buddha's teaching. So you all have a habit of respecting the statues and different images of the Buddha. And so in a similar way, you should also respect the scriptures, the Dharma books.
Jigten Sumgon Gendu Yungu Shepchigores, Gendu Yungos and the Bena, Tara, Mahayana Tang, Tene, Theravada Tang, Vajayana, Jinjo in the Chibari, the Tam, Chilatini, Gendu Much, name the Kijana, Tene, Kujapchigores. Te Mago Mara to Tara Churo, Jambi Domba Shunil, the Man, Churo, Chik, the Pinsoya, Shepchigo, the Sama Gendu Chak, Sanji Jinjo, Sanji Jindu ring, and to give out of Yonsi. Control the Tipa in Tipa in the Tama Gindu Chavi. They Tamki the Pat Seva Chikuyapchia, Chico is. They Tamki Jana Sel Kevin. So the Kevin. So the Sunam da Synapsia, they bought the Tana to Chijin in Wudo. Same Sama Vino, same Sama Tara, they bought Hibat, same Sama. Same Sama. Tanga Seva Chido Bar Seva Shia, same Sama. Did the Rang of Sunam Toya Tanta, but Jubatayat, so you is. And then the thing all keeping you to Suchena. The data of the Habsat Sutin, Yamnichena. The name when I got a jump in Tomba, she didn't go to use. Then data of the Jabdon, Tomba shoots at the thing around Namju top. Not only Sanji Jinjo in some tilo to water. No Kadina, not Tamju Milli tops on not Chipo in a Sanji Conchos and not chaps, so not Gindu in Kadina, my conchos with Jinjo in Satinity, Jambo Habsat Namju Kang to Yamnichi. Or the region of the one, Gendo Chart, the Jamidomba, give me Yanta, give me Chaparis, and the beginning words. And there, the Jamidomba, the Karchim, but Jamidomba, my year and number taxi. Namjung answer Nanchi, the Fabio Unari, oh, some Hingi Ubayinari, Yena, Jamidomba, Chira, Majibayina, Chira Nambata, Chatu. Now, the kid is only Tara, the bottom of the soul. Sanakche per jamro hinji satana ni paro the pansan the jamdo domba unique and namba internet didn't touch you with this. And jamdo domba hunis on the nambacha. Jamdo domba mataba ina didn't nambacha will and jamdo domba haja teaching which jamdo domba the namba sanjig to me. Domba tamji ma yi tin raja. Tin sinanga kangba jagon sacha tel ting kangba jago. Sacha you bal tin kangba jago sacha chuning kangba jayo. Tenang nang buchul domba tang agre pena sanga ka wang da tang che sancho sem gitene domba sancho sem dom yana ngana so tara le practitioner na bacha phone ke na chu nyamne sia ke domba ina da tene ya gen do ge chlong domba thamchi tin ro de chab domba ti tin yo ta ambo chab domba de she tini ti tin ta chana 오, 산초 생기 돈바시나 초거리 지랑게 게츠롱게 돈바시나 초거리 되네 지랑 하바 포모스야 되는 하게 돈바시나 되거리 왕도 조시나 되거리 아무 점도 돈바 인기 미지고 점도 돈바면 계속 토고 요 말이 있다 토고 메스 점도 돈바시나 되는데 하바자 사차는 지 요원 sabde 되네 지랑 점도 돈바 토고 요스 점도 돈바면은 돈바 이거 토고 메스 가서 사 컴바자 사차는 미지지나 컴바 자야는 디나 일이 있어 그래서 then jamdo domba ten kichim buchabe yores.
And so when we go for refuge in the Sangam, we then should respect all of the different Sangam members from all the different kinds of Sangam communities. For example, in the Mahayana, we've said this Manjushri or Rajapani and so on. And there's the different Sanghas of the Mahayana, of the Theravada, of the Vajrayana. So all of them should be seen as Sangam and respected. And also that goes for between Dharma friends. Every Dharma friend who has taken the refuge vow is also a Sangam. And we should respect each other as Sangha members, as followers of the Buddha. So anyone who follows the three jewels becomes a Sangam, and we should love them and respect them. And if we love and respect them, who really benefits from that? It's really yourself, because you accumulate merit, and also you develop your own faith and pure perception, which purifies your mind. Faith purifies your mind, and you accumulate merit, you purify obscuration. So it's all for your own sake, actually. So if you have taken the refuge vow today, and if you understand this point and you practice in this way, then it really has become meaningful. So once you have taken the refuge vow, you should think, now I'm really a follower of the Buddha. I have a precious human body. I have such a fortunate existence. Now I've taken refuge in the three jewels. Now I'm a Sangha, I'm a follower. So now I have to do my best to practice the teachings, the precepts, as well as I can. If you think this way, you are a real Sangha. So that is the purpose of taking the refuge vow. And also, when you take the refuge vow, you actually become a Buddhist. If you do not take the refuge vow, you do not become a Buddhist. Even if you practice, or if you kind of study Buddhism and you have love and compassion, but you're not actually a Buddhist unless you take the refuge vow. Jigten Sumgon said that the difference between Buddhist and not Buddhist is the refuge vow. And a refuge vow is also the foundation of all the other vows. For example, if you want to build a house, you need a foundation, a ground. If you don't have a ground, a spot to build your house, you obviously can't build a house. So you need a ground, a foundation. And also, so because it is the foundation of all vows, you can't really do any other practices without it. So for example, if you have the refuge vow, then you can also take the Vajrayana Samaya. You can receive a Vajrayana empowerment, or you can take the Bodhisattva vow, or you can take a lay person's vows, like the Upasaka vows, or you can take a novice ordained vows or fully ordained vows. There's different vows you can take, but you can only take them if you have refuge as a foundation. And without that foundation, you can't really take any other vow or do any of the other practices successfully. Because it is just like trying to build a house without a foundation, without a place to build the house on. You can't really actually do that. And so that's why the refuge vow is really so important.
Okay. Tenita namju jumpara manangune namba yin samba tini maji pechine tini conchosim pe yontin tan conchosim jetini so depa tan yichi lapar je na jumpara te nyamni ji yang yas jamlu samantang tini nga ge jza jtong tamji fu ya conchosim ni ma tapa ya chuya gogres te karjin te conchosim gu ma ngar go ngar sinlat tan rewa de jun chhe tesna ni jza ji fu tan ji yan chu tini je rang ge sen de kepin tang ne ka ge ji kepin chi de tini nga conchosim lu ta ya ma tu na ya conchosim tu na ya lu ma ta ma chi na de na nga conchosim ji ginjo yin nang ba yin sa ba tini ti tini nga ge tini kang tu tan ya min chi go res.
And so then going forward, you should always remember that I am now a Buddhist. I'm a follower of the three jewels. Never forget about that. Meaning that always remember the qualities of the three jewels. Always remember your faith and your belief. And to always remember it, you think about it again and again. And in order to think about it again and again, for example, we make offerings to the three jewels every day. Not because the three jewels need our offerings, but so that we sustain a connection to their blessings. And so for this reason, no matter what happens, you should never give up on the three jewels for any kind of maybe temporary profit, some kind of anything that may come up temporarily, never give up the 3 jewels for that, or for any reason. So always remember, I'm now a Buddhist, I'm a follower of the 3 jewels, so I will do the best I can from where I'm at to practice.
아야다 지난주 뇌전남 거라더니 산지 좀 된데 아빠 시작했다 친구지 요요 삼바더니 그때는 잠도 쉬고요 나 잠도 쉬어야 돼나 혼자 수남다 보나든 됐다가 가라서 뭐 힘든 인상 가고 나데 따더니 수남 너다고 겨자와 담지 양에 그런 신기 탐지기 치드네 잠도 돈 마시고 사 인더 따더니 고갑다 까마미 바 대다 탐지 아마 신기 탐지기 치드네 잠도 돈 마시는 네 냠니 지고 대탐지 치드서 그래서 다 신기
So then for
아주 대 신기된 남이 니요 신기 세드 신데 즉 대와 팀 치든 하거든요 semjisiya chigi ngor ngaya uyin tichi di jambi dombo kon gewa zhuya dikpa panya yang tse sima chi nisong dunga tamchi njikhin chana yang ngay te tam di nisong na talgu do sam di teni ngay semji na teni yang gewa zhuya jabdong liya taso yungor 다 대탐지 야보 말이 세야 맞든 야보래 얘네한테 디 야사 지고나 야히디 지고나 산초 심지고래 산초 심지 세야 돼 가르진 오 난도 다 까와서 보리 섬디테니 탄도 다 까와다 메딘 베심지 탐지 닝제사 야 대탐지 기등에 잠도 돈바현 탐지 코와도 동할링에 자고 삼바 본조스면 뛰는 게 대탐지 동할을 줘 로고 양의 대탐지 되니 디 잡도시 무슨나 또 같은 대탐지를 저르쇼 삼바더니 대다고 생기지나 되니 대바티 심지 차고요 그래서
So for taking the refuge, then visualize in the space in front of you a form of the Buddha Shakyamuni, a large form, and think that in his presence you are now taking the refuge vow, and also rejoice in the fortune of taking the refuge vow, because it is only possible if you have accumulated a lot of merit and made prayers for that in previous lives. So that is why this can now happen. So rejoice in that too. And then also cultivate the right motivation for the refuge vow. And that is that the best motivation to have is, I am now taking the refuge vow for the benefit of all sentient beings, because there are many sentient beings who do not have the opportunity, the karmic fortune to receive the refuge vow. They're all mother sentient beings. So I will take it for them and practice for them so I can benefit them. So for the motivation, there are different kinds of motivations for taking the refuge vow. For example, you could think that I'm taking the refuge vow, so things will go well for me in this life. So that is why I will practice virtue. I will give up non-virtue so that I will have a good life. There's another way of thinking. For example, if you think beyond this life, you can take the refuge vow thinking, I don't want to go into the lower realms. I'm afraid of taking birth in the lower realms and suffering there. So therefore, I will practice virtue and give up non-virtue and take the refuge vow. So these kind of motivations, we can't say that they are bad. Of course, there are also good motivations, but there's better motivations. So if you want to have the best motivation for taking the refuge vow, that would be a motivation of bodhicitta, where you think that I'm taking the refuge vow for the benefit of all beings with great compassion, because they don't have the karma, the merit to receive the refuge vow. So I will take the refuge vow and then I will practice so I can liberate all these sentient beings from suffering. So this kind of motivation for taking the refuge vow is a Mahayana motivation.
남주 생기도 기치 못 잡아요. 생기도 기치 못 잡는데 지금 송도 나. 최나 담기 끼 눈부터라 잡네. 지난 그 생기 가해 개발에 대답은 좀 돼요. 그래서 then rimde chimbo simki chimbo 지난 내가 최종 말이 심기 최종 개와 chimbo지 두고 요나리 개와 충분히 두고 요나리 지난 심기 chimbo이나 개와 충분히 두나 chimbo 차는 대 개와 chimbo지 두고 요나요 지난 심기 충분히서 연구면은 틀 개와 충분히 차는 참아 심기가 변제가 그래서 된 남중 안에서 다 오빠 chimbo세요 그 가래 똑같이 형으로세요 심 자체죠 심기 자체죠 근데 뒤때문에 제발 저거 나도 끼네 저거 빼 깨라 친구차 산주 서바 탐지 깨라 친구로 말했지 깨라지 그런 무슨 생기 자친 거예요 생기 탐지가 동지고 산 뒤로 때문에 끼네 저 친구 차서 말이었어
And so this motivation is generally very important because it is said that all phenomena depend on causes and conditions. The condition or the cause and condition which is really driven by the motivation. And so the motivation is really the determining factor when it comes to outcomes. So whatever you think of, in whichever way you're able to develop your mind, that will be kind of the extent of your result, meaning that if you want to have great results, you need to have a vast state of mind, a vast motivation. It's not about a vast action. So it's not that a very impressive, grand action will lead to a grand outcome, but it's the grand motivation that leads to the grand outcome. So meaning that even if the action itself seems very insignificant, seems a very small act, it can lead to a great result if the motivation is great. So it all is this kind of the scope of your mind, how vast can your mind be? So there will be a corresponding result depending on the vastness of your mind. And this is also where we often make a difference between different vehicles. We call it the higher and the lower vehicles because of the scope of mind. How vast is our mind? What does the mind encompass? And that is also why, for example, the great bodhisattvas like Chenrezig have become so famous. So everyone knows them and kind of reveres them because of their great mind. The mind is so vast. They think of all beings, of all sentient beings, encompassing all beings. So it's that vastness of the mind that is the determining factor.
덤지드는 저기다서 말아서 뭐가 나한테 이제 뭐네 이제 말씀이 그냥 이제 이번에 인센스 말씀이 그냥 이제 되게 그냥 무슨 얘기나 오나 말이지 좀된 거리에는 이렇게 저 공공거든요. 봐야 되는 얘기인데 유대원의 요소서 상사와다 주제 샤바다 예수야 그래서 얘기가 밤제조 버산조 서롱호 준비나 요소마가 보여주는 지금 규정 걸로 코드서 아치랑수 지디치 요새
Now please repeat.
좀봐 용서서 what your name you can tell here 기드웨 그 뱅니 종대 접시 소여 바드 까니 남진초 산지라 잡신초 차바당 잘와 남진초 주라 잡신초 소남진초 겐동라 잡신초 다접시 소여 바드 잡신 진바 난가 송워 김민더 선배 종더 소 지난도 예능시 유에 인한 예
Yes.
인기 때문에 제기도 제치
Do I want in English? Noble one, please heed me from this very
Hello.
time.
Hello.
Oh, yeah. So again,
Okay, no. Okay, just wait. Okay. Should I sit? That's a little though. Oh
all
yeah.
right.
Ah,
Okay,
that.
noble one, please heed me
Please heed me
from this very time
from this very time
and for as long as I live.
and for as long as I live.
I, who am called and say your name,
I, Laura Lakshmi,
take refuge in the Buddha,
take refuge in the Buddha,
who is supreme
who is supreme
among human beings.
among human beings.
I take refuge in the Dharma,
I take refuge in the Buddha,
which is supreme
which is supreme
among those free of attachment.
among those free of attachment.
I take refuge in the Sangha,
I take refuge in the Sangha,
which is supreme
which is supreme
among assemblies.
among assemblies.
For as long as I live,
For as long as I live.
noble one,
Noble one,
please accept me
please accept me
as a lay practitioner
as a lay practitioner
who upholds the threefold refuge
the threefold refuge
and observes the precepts.
and observes the precepts.
Oh yeah. Again. Lopong. Gong so. Your name?
Yeah, that Laura.
He do.
Huge away.
Tu tene. Zong te. Gypsy.
You see,
Chancho.
so,
Ningbo la. Chi je.
you
Barde. Kani. Namjin cho. Sanje la. Jobson cho. Chapa tang. Darwa. Namjin cho. Chula. Jobson cho. So namjin cho. Gendong la. Jobson cho. Da gypsy. Chancho. Ningbo la. Chi je barde. Jobson zimba. Nanga songwe. Gimye de. Lopong ji. Zong de so. English?
In English, Master,
Master,
please heed me
please heed me
from this very time
from this very time
and until attaining
to attaining
the heart essence of awakening.
the essence of awakening.
I, who am called and say your name,
Laura,
take refuge in the Buddha,
take refuge in the Buddha,
who is supreme
who is supreme
among human beings.
among human beings.
I take refuge in the Dharma,
I take refuge in the Dharma,
supreme among that
supreme among that
which is free of attachment.
which is free of attachment.
I take refuge in the Sangha,
I take refuge in the Sangha,
which is supreme
which is supreme
among assemblies,
among assemblies.
until attaining
And
the
until
heart
attaining
essence of awakening.
the heart of
Master,
awakening.
please accept me
Please accept me
as a lay practitioner
as a lay practitioner
who upholds
who upholds
the threefold refuge
the threefold refuge
and observes the precepts.
and observes the precepts.
Oh yeah. 당에 탑이노 라고더니 지랑게 렉소 라고레스 탑이노 라나 탑세나데 탑람세나 아 말아도 또 코르동하레 탑세거 코르동하레 탑 코르동하게 쥐어 당지의 녀모 같은지 마 미버탑 마 뇽을 탑 다랑이 줄을 삼바데 니제부터 야 깨야 탑 산지기 잠도 못 쫓아가요. 예스.
Next, so Rinpoche will say tap which means this is the method. And in response, we say lexo, which means excellent. And so the method here is that, so this is the refuge vow, is the method to become liberated from the suffering of samsara, which is the cause of the suffering of samsara. self-grasping and the afflictive emotions. And it's the method to cultivate love and compassion. Like so.
So,
동계는 로봇이되는 가면은 저쪽 다양한 지금 짜증과 좋아라도 지랑게 또라 냉자고를 스타트과 좋아하면서 지랑게 짜증도 봐야는 지랑 기본도 왜라 대 기본도 좋아라스 나한테 돈다 가르치 그러시는 지랑 은혜 지랑 짜도 돈 바시고 인베스 다 컴폼도 지르다 당연히 마시고 인베 맞잡도 인기미 마시고 인베스 그다
And then next,
Lama the Tawater Loma Chirang Mune Chaku in Besan Jap in Bes. A Loma in last Gola said in Mashuin.
So then next, so then in the text it says, so then the Rinpoche will say, it will ask a question. So it is in Tibetan doam, and then you will say in response dola. And so what it means is that, so the question is, are you now you're taking the refuge vow, just confirming, do you really want to take the refuge vow? Are you, the doam means, are you happy? Are you happy about it? And then dola means, yes, I am very happy about it. And so it's basically just kind of confirming that, are you sure you want to take the refuge vow? And then you, in response, you say, yes, I'm sure I'll take the refuge vow.
Ola.
Good. Okay, now you come in here. Do you have this? You come here. You put it here. Okay. Very good. Dorzin Dhondrup Rinpoche. Jumbo. Dobana. Your name. Gong Cho Shiram Somo. Shiram Somo. Gong Cho Shiram Somo. Gong Cho Shiram Somo. Karesin. Gong Cho de Gong Cho Sum. Gong Cho Sum Jitini Shirap Jua. Shirap say at it. So Nagitara. Panyomba. Magiva to say. Karayimba. Devaja Karayimba. Magivaja Karayim. Shipatil Shirap Tavada. Tenen somos는 배 시랍들 제밤이 배 잡초다. 대답을 요래라 본다 됐어. 지금 somos.
So Sherab Tomo, so it's Guntrog Sherab Tomo. So Guntrog is like the three jewels, so belonging to the three jewels, and then Sherab is a wisdom, and that it means it's the wisdom that has discernment. So you can discern, you know, the difference between what is the cause of happiness and what is the cause of suffering. Like what that the afflictive emotions, for example, are the cause of suffering. So that is wisdom, and then Tomo is like the kind of like a sea, a vast open sea. So kind of a vast wisdom.
여러분 이제 좀 이제 너무 이제 저는 이제 뭐냐면 따도 많이 좀 이제 그거 지원도 지나도 이제 거기 많이 뭐 최소 님도 지면으로도 세 바르쇼 다 잠도 돈 바시 바리 잠도 돈 바터바리 잠도 돈 바시 바탄 다 터반들 때는 되니 아빠는 되니 콘초스는 그 신제라 봐 콘초스는 게 되니 될 때는 라게 뒷바탕에 파다야 즐기고 수나 터야 주마체바 소용도 요래스
So now you have received.
피용배 망보도 피용 자체 보여를 된 때는 가서 그쪽은 나오면 저 돈다 도도를 해나 그건 좀 생각도 좀 많이 방안을 단 레와 차를 레와 때는 Juma Chibatin, Alice not to you, but on Teletine, Navi Julatine, give us one to the Yakon Pro. The Nichi led a new Mubatamki, my new lawyer. So you the Jigten Sumgon.
And so now we have received a refuge vow. And so having received the refuge vow, you are always connected to the three jewels. So you always receive the blessings of the three jewels. Of course, there's many more benefits, but we don't have too much time. But so basically, you will always be connected to the three jewels. You will, and being connected and receiving their blessings, you will always purify negativities like negative karmas and afflictions, and you will always increase your merit.
Sanjo Simjo Rinpoche, Maji, Panam, Chiji, Tipanya, Bami Baya, Pone, Panda, Pova, Show. Palma took 6 minutes for Tibet. Yeah. 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 Bro, Minchiji in Japan, this is Sunny Gunning one, and the Jigon was on the Bezavella, Yellow Sovan, so simply them did your lodges and doors, yellow the doors, yellow the launch was Traba East and Javas in Yellow the saw. That train answer ma Kachishia de Chopanji, the Simjungo Bogan Zepetin, Sajachi Mangadin Topon girl, Tenima, Chivers. Kazanchita ngadi molam rawachi dharma katan zayin so ngadi rang tambo de limora ngal tehi na singe tangso ngal tangso lo ite ngai shibcha ya boji tawa yin shibcha ya boji tawa yin de tini tes ko kapo tandri do ko kapo re te ngal tangma le tambo ba yin chadi tini tarari ngadi chobar mbaji tongor songa kuni tonda chiba chichang tonda chiba chichang yin chadi tini ere le tes ko le lao yu ba tene yungudo tene ngende hi na la tene nge ngarang te dampa yins tan de ngene gona pe tan rong ka du korang ta do ta do thap tu pa yu na ti chu pa me na thap cha pa ta nga din shi pa te yu go pe chu gi tene ne teng sa po wa ta chi mi sen lap kin sin kha chi mo tan de cha ko yu res tan de ta chi ngam yo nga na ta chi ko ndo tang se da ndo tang chi yu ro chi lo gi ju ram ke ndo tang chi yu ndu ngune che na tambo hunro chapsan chi go da hunro ngana tu tara nga ding gi hunro ngana tu da hunro ngoma nge na hunro nga tu ti tambo yan za hunro ti yu re ene te cha de tara nga de sakchi hunro yang ka chen ti yu nda sam te de te hunro tara lodon no ba ya lodon no ba ge de yin ji mi ji nga su go chu nya mi chen de ma ji ko te ri ni te ne ta hunro te ne 주먹은 공부 로도 나바게 티모 많이 봤더니 잠로다 사다 삼범이요. 저는 범주에서 사 범지 도르신 득득장하게 도르셔서 이게 잡은 범지 되네 다라티 가려면 저기 멘더 초사야 지더니 멘더 범지 되네 줄 세남 주고 지더니 라면 남겨 범지 대소 싸고 대소 싸 되네 대서 제발 좀 훈로 삼바데 닌지 산초지 센도 배 공고 저 공고 공지때 봐 뇨아 통바잖아 되네 나에 따라 나디나 나해도 그 주름치는 된듯이 다 얘는 지나 통하디 까고 된다 나는 게다 땡서보다 게 쉬어 맞다 롭잠치 랑관 된든다지 인사 말이 삼산로 지니 간 히치히치마 롭디롭디 어떤 줄라 빠빠지 마 쉬어요 봐
So then we start the teachings on the songs of realization of the fivefold path of Mahamudra by Lord Jigten Sumgon. So that is not the teaching that I finally settled on. I was initially I thought about teaching on the fivefold path of Mahamudra aspiration prayer by Dharmakirti. But then when when I looked at it a little bit more closely, I found that it's maybe a little bit difficult to understand. And so since we're all beginning practitioner, I thought it's better to have something that's actually the same, but much easier to understand. And so these songs by Jigten Sumgon are exactly the same. There's no difference in the meaning, but they are a little bit easier to understand. So then I chose this one for the teachings. And so the Fivefold Path of Mahamudra is really the ultimate view and practice of the Drikung Kagyu lineage. Ultimate meaning that if you have it, it's all you need. And if you don't have it, you don't have enough. So it's indispensable. You need those. And they are very profound and they possess a lot of blessings. And so according to the way, that's the traditional way of practicing the Dharma, there's an order to things. There's a certain order in which we complete those practices. So normally we have to complete the preliminary practices first, the Ngondro practices. In the past, we've talked about the Fivefold Path of Mahamudra, Ngondro, and then also the Yang Sab Ngondro. So we spoke about different Ngondro practices. And before the very first of those preliminaries is the common. So there's common and uncommon preliminaries. And the first step are the common preliminaries. And these are the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, a reflection. We reflect on these. And these are really the foundation of Dharma practice. Then after that, we practice the uncommon preliminaries, which consists of 400,000 accumulations, 4 different sections. So first, there's refuge. So we prostrate 100,000 times. We prostrate we take refuge 100,000 times. Second is the practice of Vajrasattva for purifying our negativities. We recite that 100,000 times. And then we make 100,000 mandala offerings to accumulate merit. And then we recite 100,000 guru yoga practices. And that is in order to receive blessings. So that's the uncommon preliminaries. And after that, there are special preliminaries, which is to cultivate bodhicitta, love and compassion. And so then finally, after all of that, we actually start with the Fivefold Path of Mahamudra. So that's the general order of things. And these teachings are very profound, and I'm not able to speak in this very profound way. I can give you kind of a rough outline and introduction to those teachings. I can kind of present you the path, kind of telling you that so this is basically the path, but also we don't have so much time to go into so much detail. So.
사자 진보스 나 사자 진보 등주거를 나티스 담보 산초 셈 예담글라 라마 남주 라마 뚜지 남주 되니 사자 진보 내로 사자 진보 네 사자 진보 모아스 데르카 나스 잉아
So it's called the Fivefold Path of Mahamudra. So this path of Mahamudra has 5 sections, 5 different stages. And so the first one is bodhicitta. The second is to practice the Yidam deity. The third is to practice the 4 kayas of the Guru Yoga. And the fourth is to practice Mahamudra, natural state of Mahamudra. And the fifth is the Mahamudra dedication.
ngadi sega jindi kasi kyopan ji tisum ju bitara simjin ki thon drumdi ta tinga ti gon thon ju bata rang khone ki nyamni ta tinga ji yore ma loma thamje tinga ga gon ti chu khyo re sa 법칙이 나거든요. 대유당 누군가 딩스는 용 스트럭처리즈.
And so why do we call it that fivefold path of Mahamudra? So where does it come from? So it comes from Jigten Sumgon, and he benefited the sentient beings through this fivefold path. So it was his own experience, it was his own practice, and this is what he passed on to his disciples.
야, 다 토마드 파파모트 샤블란도 소 파파모트 바세데 교반기 티스무 콩 짜블라마 다 짜블라마 센서드 나랑아딘 게타라 주파티 요르 주파티 티니 마이 거타 도딘 차니 마르파 이드 마 주오데 티니 파모트 바콩 짜블라마 파데 티니 짜블라마 파모트 빈데니 티니 콩티 냠니 라비온체 티니 티니 냠니 체요 티니 티니 콩게 티니 짜블라마 카딩탐 티니 짜블라마 타 아나 누파 누구 요마 체바 요 언제 드네 거기 가드에는 드네 토마데 드네 파파모 트 베차블란도 소나 드네 드네 거잖아 드네 게자 히로다 냠네 치요 냠네 치데 딩고 이 냠네 치 담볼라마가 나게 데바트 미치 그 바치 드네 가게 냠네 치 이제는 체교나 담보 잡을라마 그 바타 데바치 드네 드네 마 option 베스 대스는 드네 거기 딩아딩이 또 본거성의 토마데 드네 파파모 트 베차블란도
The text begins with words of homage. It says, I bow, I bow at the feet of glorious Mahamudra. Mahamudra was Jigten Sumgon's root guru. And it was from him that he received the lineage of this fivefold path, which goes back all the way to Vajradhara. And this whole lineage was passed down from Vajradhara up until it reached his own root guru, Mahamudra. And then in his presence, Jigten Sumgon learned and practiced these teachings. And he always remembered the kindness of the root guru by saying something in the beginning. So, for example, here in the beginning of this text, he bows down to the feet of glorious Mahamudra. Whenever he would give teachings to his own disciples, to others, he would always start with some words of homage, bowing down to his own root guru, always remembering the root guru's kindness with devotion, with faith, and with a pure perspective. So this is what he would always sustain, and this is a good practice for beginning and practitioners too. We first always remember the kindness of the guru. That is why this text also begins with these words of homage.
아야 다 담보 아딩에는 이 삼대 힘지 상처지 심표서 선배지 대인들이 똑본 거는 삼대 힘지 따보래 인fin이 또 맞잖아 총산의 월치면 승훈로들은 인fin도 또 담보 공대 성도 왔어 삼대 힘지 삼바의 힘지다 백기치 머리에서 다 너들은 삼바 힘지가 나죠 삼바의 힘지면은 다 주념님이 되는 중대도 해요 중대 동거 미장 상행기도 거예요. 상행기도 빼지 차야나스. 빼는 거는 다죽고 요런 참서 딱 방링 요런. 항상 미신 아주 볼래요. 다기 죽전진. 다기 죽전진이 되니 다기 요단는 거예요. 다죽진 다 안담보 사간. 사가도 간이 다도 건 요새 그런 요새를 다 먹고는 건 요새 치와 인자 그 사간. 사가면도 뭐 먹지게 다 빠대야 보레스. 뭐 진짜도 다. 다들 그런 진짜 사가도 스톱을 깨라쳐. 이 뒤나이. 산도 hingi de naga ta kobu dunga tarbo na santo hingi de ta na yi san hingi de tine ro teni yin sim chin chi dong zhe go le sta sam hingi de tine rang ge ju le sam hingi yu ti ten teni sim chin yin na teni yin pin ji sa wa zhem ne teni yin pin ji sa wa zhem ne de le tene teni yin pin sa hla mo tham ji ge teni hla de mon ro sim ji tham ji ge teni sa wa zhem ne sim ji tham ji ge sa wa zhem ne teni Ndruktubuyo res. Teletene, Ponglam or Chiminius, Teletene, Lada Motungi, Quatam, Kubernes Chugur, Samling Idene. This are just about Dorzin Dhondrup Rinpoche, Ranjing Gepe, Sinji Tamgetine, Hortu Zatam. Then Dorontos, Sagi Machapin, Harakin, Sinji Yemetine, Pinto Jachim Boyungo, or Teletene, or Chiminius, Sin Honda Desena, and it done young Sambata Hingi to Solata. Ni 생문도 되는 이 루제 드레 생문도 세 삼도 힌진 들고 삼도 힌지 같은 니 팅기에 다 준방한 상hin지 상처지 생공고 해서 근데 인사를 스타트 체크인데 해요.
So it begins. The first one is Bodhicitta, and the root verse says, on the stallion horse of love and compassion, if stamina in the race of benefiting others is not present, the applaud of multitudes of gods and humans will not arise. Thus, earnestly strive for this preliminary mind. Love and compassion is indispensable for our Dharma practice. If you practice the Dharma without love and compassion, it will not lead to any good results. And we need love and compassion. So here the example is given of the example of a horse race. And so maybe it doesn't happen too much here, but in Tibet it's quite popular. We have horse races, and the fastest horse wins the race. And then once the horse won the race, it becomes famous. It is praised and gets like a trophy, and so that's the kind of horse we want to have, the best horse. And that horse is the horse of love and compassion. And the running of the horse, it runs for the benefit of others. As the running is accomplishing the benefit of others. And so if you accomplish the benefit of others, you will run the fastest. So you will win the horse race. And so if we want to become liberated from the suffering of samsara, we need that. We need love and compassion. We need to benefit others. And without that, we cannot attain any good results. So, so it says then the applaud of multitudes of gods and humans will not arise unless you have love and compassion. Gods and humans will not praise you, meaning that only if you have love and compassion will you be able to accomplish something really meaningful for others. So that's the preliminary. It says, earnestly strive for this preliminary mind. So the actual preliminary practice is, the ultimate preliminary practice is love and compassion.
홈하면 어찌면요. 다른 딱다 규토 기반한 이 기능이 좀 뭐긴 마소지고 지요가.
하나
아마
쉐이르?
딱 규토 기대 딱다 안 담보 사갈이 이게요. 홈하면 어찌지. slaata ma thamjigi tini umpa tu gona tini rangi du la samba tini ingi di gona singi yan tini dorong chana tini slaata ma thamjigi chupar jipi nesi chupi yores pena nga sa ti jase mani te chungjo rana songo yore kibi songo yore kowi nyam ta jipi singi sancho lori sancho senji jina kechi ke 코로냥 타큐르 심지나 데킬 남지 세지 주에 유저르히 직딩 함르게 사브자추스 베는 뭐냠 타바 베 휴냠 타바지 인자 코로나 이직지의 코로나 산출 삼바디 인지 산출지 심 코로나 유를 제송이나 텔레틴 티용 디텔레틴에 플라타 못 탐지게 되는 그 바탄 추버지도 라무 탐지게 되는 사서 우스 주그 요래서 대대는 산출 셈되더니 미나트는 가져다 심진지 동양 두고요 말 랑게 동양 두고요 산출지 셈이나 심진이 동주 랑게 동양 저 저래스 대대 산출 셈들 인지민지 다 닌띵지는 냠닌지 다 닌띵지는 냠닌시 산출 삼바드 인지 자치모리 간데지는 다 공고리세나 시대 냠닌 간데지고 레라오면도 스리 레라오요 말에 레라오면자 Tenipe Sancho Simbasea di Nyongsi, Maris. The thing are Sancho Simba Niti Sidita, Yamnation, around Bezorchi, Bezo Kandiji Tara, Kadampa, gave he need to forget. Somebody Hinji Gomba Nines, Nasu Tina Ins, and Gom Yamichi, Karen Kozu Kandiji. Nansu Gom Jan, Konas, somebody Hinji Gom, the Nitarati, Yamichi, Juram, the number, doing the chick, then Konas, somebody Hinji, Majipa, Sajipasipa. Teni Chine ya koni kongto petap. Kono ya pen ma manyava chiya. Ten bezo tena chi ni teni jimji minga dunju goni teni sambate ninji sanshu sen kono koto nrugu yores. Jimji minga dungu shibate kandi chini. Ambo toma ngana chik chila sambate ninji chiya le lao rin me dosi. Kasi nga so danzin shivu yorta. Nga shiba danzin nganzin shivu yor. Nganzin shivu chi yung teni te teni ta nga so sambate ninji yina pimpa loti chiya me. Wate jimsen chi teni chiya. Jimsen di chiya hindi ta 토마드 다 이렇게 마 같은 친구로 말하면서 지 상반인지 지를 나오거든요. 근데 삼노당도 심기 탐기 말이 봐스. 심기 탐기 마마지 직장요 많이 산지 송요. 오늘 삼노당은 나서 리페이션 요새는 지랑 기와 흥마 켈링 그 요나 지랑 같은 다른 심기 탐기 마마지 직장 미세야 켈링 투예요. 근데 다 심기 탐기 마마지 직장 미세야 남부대 심반의 챕터입니다. 된 차량 배설치. 된 차량 배설치. 다 마마도 직접 미스게. 근데 거랑 이게 제가 제입니다. 마르시바. 마르시비 차비타 진진바. просто 나 마르. 사바 로지스비. 다 그래서 나 가딘 친구를 상고. 가딘 친구로 다른 마기 가딘 간디 장에 와 있나요? 지왕은 마 대답 가딘 장. 마한테 가딘 친구를. 진시바. 진시바 잠지 핑거면 진소. 지랑이 지랑 아마를 들린 간데 이자도 이러. 지랑 뿌기 지랑 들린 간데 이자도 빼티나이. 당하는 까딘 침벌 산테 까딘 침벌 인사는데 나 오늘 찾긴 거 나, 공조숨 지슨 좀네 남배 추냐면서 다 깔아서 니 진소다. 다 진소아. 선바데 진소. 진 간디소. 다음에 가리드니 가서 진소도 그도 다 진소아. 되네 이용게 삼바지다 심지 통계다 나 많이 봐시 진시 니시 진 조고 봐시다 삼바지다 심지 통계를 야보요 삼바 정말 많이 또 야보요는 삼로 체계를 봐시 삼바 이용 삼바 다 대차들이 닌지에서지 닌지 다 심지 통계가 마마 좀 이나 코란스 레짐제 마시비치 레짐제 마시비 대왕도 대외제 코스 대왕을 접시면도 동학이 점도 좀 먹여봐 듣고 요래 sam 먹여봐 때문에 동학 연구 요래 난 그런 심지 탐지는 송구 동학다 이제 그 동학이 나디 요래 다 삼ത്തിന് hingi 다 탐지 동학을 줬다는 지 말아 삼그 어째요 hingi 마 팔로 강의는 제거는 마데티 지금 나창다보다 강의 뭐 임배치 나중에 당근 가서 대리치 좋답답이 지로 때때다 되는 이 소송도 동학다 심지 탐지 동학 나다니 탐지 나가 많이 방아 샘난 좋아 있나 때가 한식 hingi 때문에 탐도 어째가 다 진지 다 때니 hingi 때문에 때문에 따라 클락삼 클락삼지였다 정말 라포삼 지 요즘이 laksamsiyate 요즘이 봐. 요즘이 봐. 스스네 남바 약고 띵바자 많이 봐. 카유 라유 그치. 거 약고 요나 사야. 되는 배조스야 되더니 아 데려다가 laksam이 laksam바. 답이 돌려다. 로 될비는 되니 심지 다 산초 심지다. 다 주로만 나 영어로 왔다. 말을 뛰는 거 가딘 발레tin 네 닌자 지상 닌자 지상 보다는 닌갈 삼바지 심지탄 말이 삼바지 어떨 땐 당 닌지지 로 그래서 찔 당아 샘도 자체를 쳐는 거 바쳐시는 당아는 심지 사주지 샘이 심지다 심지 탐지 다 동안에 들어거든 산지지 공방 토부도 삼 드니 사주지 샘 드니 지해res 제당한테 유름 던지지는 하고 협경시 나랑 싸움도 섭대 무슨 나도 초락되니 년년 지야 여러 나랑 저 센터 잡아이 근데 되는 배도스네야 ngā sāchū ji sēn nāmbā ji jūda ji yā tīng bēsō tīng chī wā rēs.
So then when the horse of love and compassion wins, it will be praised by gods and humans, and one becomes kind of worthy of being offered or receiving offerings from God and humans. There's a similar quote in the Bodhicharya Vatara, where it says that when the mind of bodhicitta has arisen in the mind of say like a pitiful, even a normal, a pitiful kind of being, an ordinary being, if the mind of bodhicitta arises in such an ordinary samsaric being, even for just a single instant, that instant, that being, that person becomes child of all the Buddhas and becomes worthy of reverence, of offerings of all the gods and the humans. So that's how precious love and compassion is. And if you do not have bodhicitta, you will also not benefit sentient beings. Nothing will be accomplished. But if you have it, your own benefit and the benefit of others will just naturally be accomplished. That's why we have to make the greatest effort in cultivating bodhicitta. And so then how can we cultivate bodhicitta? It's not easy to cultivate bodhicitta, right? That's true. It's really not easy to cultivate bodhicitta. And that's also why there's not that many bodhisattvas, because it's not that easy. So there's a way that the past old Kadampa masters have practiced bodhicitta, have cultivated love and compassion gradually. So it's a gradual path of different practices one does until it arises. So there's one that's called the 7 instructions of cause and effect. And so these are like 7 stages or steps that lead ultimately to bodhicitta. Those kind of 6 contemplation that then leads to the 7, which is bodhicitta. And so these steps, these 7 steps, is something that is not very easy to practice. So the first step is to recognize all beings as your mothers. So you recognize your mothers and you cultivate love for all beings. And that's not easy because generally our self-grasping, our sense of me is very strong. That's why it's not so easy to cultivate love and compassion for all beings. And so that's why this path here begins with recognizing your mother, and then secondly, recognizing the kindness of your mother, because it's easier for us to recognize the kindness of our own mother. And so we can understand that. So that's easier. So we begin with that. And so we recognize who's our mother, meaning that we recognize that all sentient beings are our mothers. The Buddha had said all beings have been our mothers because of having had so many lifetimes. So if you believe in past and future lives, then naturally you must also accept that all beings have been your parents because you have had all these lifetimes. So because they have all been our parents, we should make an effort in wanting to help them. And for that, we have to love them first. So we recognize them as our mothers. And then we remember secondly, we remember the kindness of our mother, just like our mother in this present life has been very kind to us in looking after us. And all sentient beings have been like that. So when you think about your own mother or your own child, how you're looking after them, a mother is very kind to her child. So we remember the kindness. And then that's also not enough. We have to remember the kindness, but it's not enough to just know that. We also have to have a wish for repaying that kindness. So having a sense of gratitude for that kindness. That's the third of those 7 steps, to feel grateful for that kindness. So you're thinking here about why what has she done? Like, why do I want to repay that kindness? And then when you think in this way, then the fourth step arises, which is when you really remember the kindness of your mother and you feel very grateful for that kindness, then love arises. So that's the fourth step. Like a real sincere love arises then from that. And then once love has arisen, then the fifth step arises, which is compassion. Then great compassion arises. Because you love your mother, you don't want your mother to suffer. And because you see all sentient beings as your mothers, you don't want all sentient beings to suffer, but they suffer. Even though they don't want to suffer, they experience a lot of suffering, especially in the lower realms. So when compassion arises, it's a wish for them to be free from suffering. For example, if you imagine your own mother that you love very much is very sick, or somebody maybe abuses her, puts her through a lot of pain, of course you would want to help her. And so this kind of feeling has to actually arise, that everyone has been my mother and I sincerely want to liberate them from suffering. So that's the fifth. And then the sixth step is a pure intention, like a sincere, genuine intention. And that means it's not something like a pretense, like a deceptive kind of benevolence that we just kind of perform externally, but it comes from deep within, it's sincere. That's also necessary for bodhicitta to arise. And that's the sixth step. And then the seventh step is actual bodhicitta. So from all of that, bodhicitta then eventually arises. So there's many steps that eventually lead to bodhicitta. So we recognize our mothers, we remember the kindness, we feel grateful, want to repay that kindness. So you can see that each of these steps, it depends on the other. So they're all built on each other. And as you progress, the mind becomes vaster and vaster until it culminates in bodhicitta, and the seventh step. So bodhicitta arises gradually. First, it is not there and it arises, and then you increase that bodhicitta that's already there, and you make it increase more and more. And it's something that you have to actually develop through reflection until an actual feeling arises. And if through practice, that actual feeling of really feeling it can arise if you make an effort. And so that's the point on bodhicitta, of cultivating the twofold bodhicitta.
이빠 예담 플라 란루 플라게 잡고래 인지 미지 인사 맞이나 마칸 코바 만들어 이게 예담 제가 인주스 아 랑글루 랑안 기름 공원에 기름 예담 플라 랑 기름 공원에 되네 아 변나가서 예담 플라 망고 예다 예담 플라 망고도 대탐정의 예담 신념 미시 땅 냠미시 아주 플라 공 플라 쭉 플라 냠미시 세 여러분 다투소 냠니 담보 냠니 시고야 라 공고야 그래서 나도 남주 직직 마다 나와 나왔다 제 망고여다 마다 같은 에 녀무 바타라 또 처음에 마다 봐 되네 장와다 조바다 대와다 동하와다 다도 좀 망고 영어 인고요 되는데 같이 따라 예담 플라스에 공 예담 플라스에 때 상황이 라기 좀 신신했다 추지인의 상제 추적거리 인인 마이위인데 되네 신진 돈도 되네 로주도 거리 인데 되네 단 도드는 상대 hin지 상추 주족스 쳐대 되네 라기 이 가동 담을 요 상진 담을 요 도드는 예담 플라키바를 담보 상추 심지랑조 야 돈이 hin지랑조 되네 저 상추 심지랑조 예담 플라스 돈이 hin지 되네 넘버 죽슨 쳐대 되네 라 이음담을 데이터 되네 가서 냠니지 냠네시네 된 아주 공고 냠네시 공생 기름 조름스는 뭐 기도 그 기름도 조름도 다 공. 아, 근데 지기도 아주 치료라고. 뭔가 생각이 따라지 Nida Bana Ha Jaya, Tabana, Bana Chaya, Sushigata, and it didn't flag on this. Flag on the runner have a job, Tate gone, she but Tambong flag a number, Senator. Shinkamshin, it's a gene in a bomber number to your younger. You dating to sing up top on some. Don't get challenge here, that don't down get challenge around the flag. Don't down get challenge and one gonna turn party man, chatty real out. Round the flag, Japan, flag, good chatty is. I'm flag chatty. Rani doing your job top. Rank same digging tambo doing a flat, you strip the use. Flies up, penny, you don't flat. Then shoulder, you can try you to the use. Te taba chok de bitini chiram na tin te chiram tu siya tsate sar ta yo sar ta se ngal yu de bat ha tu chriya tu chriya chi bitini ma chiram si ta na tu chiram tu si bitini chiram tu so te ne ton da ma la yin te ha ma nga ha yin ba ha ko ya ti chi ni chiram si ne te nga la yin ba ngo chu ne te ni la gong de ta te 지름 되게 지름 이나 돌아서 너무 싫어 딱 진짜로 다른 데서 너무 이티나니 나자 띵바 시바테 단 레와요 나자 띵바세 눈에 나는 하 임바니 나는 파추고 생각나 파추고 내가 나 예담 와 때문에 대표는 양 생각 대표인 상 나랑 이치요 봐 냉초 봐 대답했더니 에 지도 냉초 같은 거 보고 그래서 왜 jarbo ya jarbo dalu la ke jarbo le yin ji mi ji jarbo xie de kan na ta long ba in sang yo ma mu ma ne jarbo lo wa cha chin bo yo jarbo ke jasi song mo so se jarbo te ni jo tang yu ni pa chin bo yo ne ko jasi ka ngam ba tham ji wang de jin ro la ko jasi ngam ba tham ji wang de ji se jin ni ni chin ro ah pe te ta teni jarbo wang de jin te mang tham ji kon ro le jarbo ko ke yo le zhe 왜 대나기 당하기 기적도 사람이 곰 기름 많이 기름 다 좋은 건데 하나님의 라인 받는 원투네 기도 팀보 차는 윤트니 될 때는 만카도 좀 되니 완전 들고 해스 만카도 좀 완전 더 센스비 나라도 남기지 생각나는 인진 상황이 되는 지 밤마다 몽보에 참아 답은 나온 전도 단도되는 참아 장아차 가바차 참아 사이라 이차 근데 이거 대신에 예담 조사 당아 라고 지름 세야 되니 인텐지는 되는 배속진 라고에 기침 붙여고 다라등에 파 동다 동동의 시기는 맞다 라고에 되는지 라파기 지름 조는 데서 지금 라고 누구 빠져야 나도 빠져야 이게 빠져야 되게 되는 거성 토용 된 탐지가 스나 탐지가 토비안으로 응도제 톱스나 당하는 유대버 정응도제 유로 망보 연구요 이나 동다 도도데 라니 라인나 라니 살라 라니 랑송바 루두기 송다더라 심리 플라이 심리나 랑게 심리 플라이 주스 차르세 지요다 너들 심리 코랑 플라이 심기남의 상징이 세대 나랑 하고야 지드니 여당 플라고야 소리 그래 근데 인사를 너들은 Recently, that China Mambo Kid, you got a Nambula Mambo song to her. No, so
Yes, so the next is the second verse, which is the Yidam deity. In one's body, the king of deity forms if the stable support of the unchanging base is not held. Mother Dakini's retinue and subjects will not gather. Thus earnestly strive for the Yidam deity body. So the Yidam is the deity that we practice many different deities. There's different deities. And the reason why we practice a deity, we meditate or visualize a deity, is in order to purify our impure perceptions, which are really our afflictions that make us see things in an impure way, in a dualistic way, pure, impure, happiness, suffering, and so on. And the deity is a Sambhogakaya form that arises from the Dharma Dhatu space. So it actually remains there while not moving from the Dharma Dhatu space. The deity appears as the Sambhogakaya form, as an embodiment of bodhicitta, of love and compassion. So all the deities appearing in different shapes and forms, colors, and different implements and ornaments, they all are an embodiment of bodhicitta. So that's the deity that we practice. And the practice of a deity consists of the visualization, which is the generation stage, and the completion or dissolution stage. And the reason why we visualize the deity is to purify our impure perceptions. So the way we practice the deity, we visualize the deity is, so if one's body, the king of deity form, so the body appears as the king of deities. So we say that the deity arises from these pure lands, and it gives us blessings, so we receive the blessings of the deity. But ultimately, actually, you are the actual deity. Actually, I am the deity by nature. That's my true nature. Primordially, that's what I really am. So that is what we should ultimately recognize. For example, if you practice the Yidam Chakra Samvara, you visualize yourself as the deity. So that is, you are recognizing, acknowledging what you actually really are, what you already have, the qualities that you already possess. So that is what you visualize. So you know that I'm actually the deity. And there's many different branches, different aspects to visualization, but most important one is this confidence. We call it divine pride, or the confidence of actually being the deity. For example, really trusting, I really am Chakra Samvara. And so this is what is meant with the king of deity forms. So you recognize yourself as the deity. And king, because in the old days, a king was very powerful. Now we don't have so many kings anymore, but in the old days, a king was a very powerful person that would have the ability to gather many subjects around them, and everyone would follow their orders. So one becomes powerful, so just like that. So then the retinue of Dakinis and so on will assemble around one. So the essence of the deity practice is to recognize that you actually are the deity. And then what happens when you recognize that is that the dualistic grasping in the mind becomes all purified. All the afflictions become purified. And so of body, speech, and mind. And we call that receiving the blessings of the enlightened body, speech, and mind. But actually, even though we say you're receiving the blessings, you're actually just recognizing or actualizing what's already within you, what you already are. You're recognizing that. And Nagarjuna had said that I am the deity and the deity is me. So in my own mind, your own mind is the deity. Or the Buddha said that all beings are actually Buddhas. So the practice of the deity, the purpose of practicing the deity is to recognize that.
ngala pakchateng sabu ji yore nga pakchateng sabu le chapo cha nga yi chamo nga pakchateng sabu yode tene ba yi de jangor pakcha pha jang su de tene nga jiram sin tene hla ji de gom tene pakcha pha de le la de gom nga ma de da yi tene dingen ji me pa zu zong tene ji de kha ye sin na ra mu yin ba de zu ngon chu ya chi de ro tham lam zan nang ge sin ni la yin ba ha ko ya chi de tene te chi yo res tene te jiram si ram ba yin te nga jiram tin po cha Tinla gomya ta jiram timbo cha sense ta ngone ngarang ta rang simi lai na ba ba oh ene la ta na sini yen mi bi ba oh ta bu ni ha ko ya ni jiram timbo cha sen so yo yo sa re san ten de ni yadam la goya se to na ta ra unzum mo ni ba cha ja ba cha tum je pa nga yes ba cha ja ne don da mo ni ne lo na pa ya yin ha ko ya ti chi de ni la goya jiram goya so yo yo sa re san
And during the generation stage, when we visualize the deity, often there's a section where we invite the wisdom beings to come here. And so why do we do that? It's because often it's difficult for us to just see that our own mind already is the deity. It's hard even to believe that. And that's because of our self-grasping, because this habit of grasping at a self is very strong. Of the obscurations and these fixations we have toward body, speech, and mind are very profound. And we have to purify them gradually. So that's why we first visualize how the deity comes, and then we visualize ourselves as the deity, which then purifies the obscurations of the body. And then with our speech, we recite the mantra. With our mind, we focus on the visualization. All of that is a skillful way to recognize that I actually am the deity. And by habituating to it, it becomes stable. And eventually, through that stability, you realize that my own mind is actually the deity. I'm not separate from the deity. So that's the whole purpose of practicing the Yidam deity, of visualizing the deity. On the relative level, it is to purify those imprints, those habitual patterns. And on the ultimate level, it is to realize that my true nature actually is the deity.
다 선바들 라면 비오리 라면 비 라마 급게 가르고 누구 진이 마마 하나 신업이 주면 sem이 되는 인데스 아다또 나서 라면 남비오리 시바 돈다 가르지 라마 시바 나서 상하 녀미신 라마 시바 하장 자 친구 저거래 가르치는 저거래 가르치는 그거 가르치는 라면 남비 누구도 소용 거요리 세나스 나라서 따라 줄지 마렉파타 마시파타 그저 망보여요 다 돼. 이거 찾기 그니까 말을 봐도 마시바를 때는 농촌 망보지 진도 그래. 농촌 망보. 농촌 망보지 제발 해놨을 때 좀 망보지라 이게 이유. 라마 제비신이 때는 되게 마시바 시버스가. 말을 받쳐 버스가. 대다고 때는 농촌 마셔리지. 용띠 공을 그랬지. 되게 라마 제비신이 있어야 되고. 되게 알아도 다 또 가래 고르스 나타 산지지 봤던 거다 본데나 미야데 나 산지 공파 토고 인차데 라마 라마 민가라 마데나 산지 공파 토야지 하용거 미르 돌데나 치라페 민바 케보지 조거나 치라 민바 케바지 때는 치라 민바 케보 차거를 마도 데라 마데나 치라 민바 케바 차예요 말 에 티나이 산지지 공파 토본타 라마 민가다 라마 신라를 때는 토고요 lama hibate tarasa ngabe nani yata lama ndam ni lama ngabe ta le tambu bo nam ke lama sochi jewa yore lama sachimul ne ba yore lama ring nganda be ya ngabe ti wang hibate long hibate chi hibate to so yang ngabe lama re parsi be yore ina zaw lama se de ngabe seng ne lo ma to ngo tu seng ne lo ma ngo tu ni ke la ma zaw lama se na zo la pa de ka ju pa ke tara 되는 마파로 사기네 para con tavola mattinava pincinzo la mamma vuole tenere in tavola mattina con una parte ma la reba con ma parte gambo pal la mamma vuole in con tavola mamma malazzo nel l'abbiamo ci sarà la mamma vuole tenere sempre nello moto niente da malaccia tenere con tavola malazzo tenere tavola mattina control sun control 자친구 인식 control 산지 주다 연동수면 틀라만 잡으려면 되비우스 가르친 산지 건조성 용띠 때가 잡으려면 나 톱 등이 하고 대신에다 건조 군대 차다 잡으려면 짝슴 군대 짝슴 신카랭가 짜왔으면 라마에다 칸도스 신압지 짜 라마 우르지 짜 예다 진행지 짜 칸도스 짝슴 군대 이 잡으려면 이래지는 짝슴 군대 건조 군대 차고 대다 탐지기 용띠 탐지기 잡으려면 나 톱보다 니 하고 니 시고 텔레티는 나라 냠다 똑같이 텔레티는 내가 코비지 단지 말이 같아 아 언트 잡으려면 때는 내가 사주지 센 언니 따와 근 다도 산지지 공파토에 잡으려면 때는 나를 뒤용팅 찌 텔레 마티는 날 탐나 임바 민자 그게 잡으려면 난 미네 탐이다 근데 잡으려면 돼나 짜침보다 기침보 차야 김치 소용이에요 대신에 때는 일단 물바트 그바 주고인데스 뒤용티 토거나 물바트 그바 보리 물바트 그바면 뒤용티 뒤용을 말해서 대신에 따라 잡을 때 송도하시 라마 급이 가 라마 급이었을 때 라마 가래 라마 급이다니 그 이해서 가래 알아서 똥 맞추고 싸워로 럭주주 보고 되니 나서서 나와 그보고 근데 대탐이 것은 이해미 받더니 오 니치가 대다부터 담라면들 그 위에 다니스 정말 용이 참지 용이 참지에 된 라만데 잡으려면 되되요자 이 라마 그 위에 배차야는 강저는 말은 초 탐지는 용고 초 탐지는 용고 간을 많이 가르치 근데 초마 요마 제가 막고는 아를 때라 초 요를 그 강인자 초 요를 와 이나 거는 니마 마샤가 이나 강쇼가 강마기에는 최중체 좀 맞투가 말 잡아차대요. 니말 때는 니마 주될 때는 나라 강을 때는 이유데 잡아대 셔네. 되니 최중마치 마음바비야. 최중마치 마. 빼 요다 빼. 빼요. 다 쳐만 요도요. 오, 다 빼대다. 라마데 투지스 납 tum지게 나니데. 빼 가는 아이들이 디스납데 용딘데. 날 톱거나 라마데 생납데 용디 미가 허브거는 그 탐람 찍으세요. 탐 찍기 가래. 나도 누구지? 누구이시? 물바다, 물바. 다 뒤에 saksan 남다도 물바다 그 발때는 딜람이 맞으나 무슨 탑. 텔레티는 내가 요티 포인트. 니지요. 에스. 데스는 되니까 가장을 따라게 아 잡으려면 되는 누구 코다 누구 써야 될까? 짱말 요즘 플레이 pernah malah depa mapa malah ni mapa malah depa mapa la depa tan mapa tan yo achuni mata sai chani mapa kan je ju kare chi ba yana or malah khana ngone ta depa la jesam je ba yo ma yo ami to tene mapa ta ba chi yo ta mapa tene je pa la tene mapa ku ju gi yung ti yong do ko malah la to kare je to mun 누구를 때는 맞고 연기를 권하는 겁니다. 될 때는 다 말아거나 상실. 대다로 따라 누구시야 때는 합정에 따라 상하는 기침을 라바는 안 따라 인만 치시 뜻이죠. 권하는 뜻을 남겨 소원. 용띠 상실 용띠 용띠 상실 냠장 스칸디 상실을 잡으려면 잘 소원돼 지금 남겨 소원돼. 나그 잡으려면 용띠 상실을 찍어야 돼. 연딩이 찬게나 산지도 찍어야지. 이나 약간 찬게나 산지를 좀 망을라 나 잡아라면 까딘 치기리지. 근데 대다더니 대파트는 짱만 대파짱만 된지. 대파짱만 대다. 근데 뭐기 대다더니 짱만죠. 근데 되는 게 나가 이렇게 토부이 그래서. 나도는 그냥 딱 장기를 공다 망보에 있었다.
And then the third is a Guru Yoga practice. On a snow mountain of the four Kayas Guru, if the sun of devotion does not shine, the stream of blessings will not flow forth. Thus, earnestly strive for the devoted, longing mind. So what's the purpose of Guru Yoga? Actually in the Vajrayana, it's considered to be a most important practice. The reason why we need to practice Guru Yoga is because there is a lot of things that we don't know, and our mind is ignorant. And because of this ignorance, we make a lot of mistakes. And that leads to kind of a flawed state of mind. So the guru helps us to understand what we don't understand, to see what we don't see, to not be ignorant. And then as a result, we will not make so many mistakes and our qualities will increase. So that's why we need to practice Guru Yoga, ultimately in order to attain enlightenment. Really, only if we receive the Guru's blessings and essential instructions can we attain enlightenment. Or for example, if you want to become a good doctor yourself, first you need to rely on another good doctor. Otherwise, you can't become like that. So we rely on the Guru's instructions and blessings to become Buddha. And so the Guru Yoga practice is considered very important in the Vajrayana. And there's different ways of seeing a guru, different kinds of gurus or different kinds of teachers. There's a teacher for ordinary people, beginning practitioners. There's those gurus that already dwell in the higher bhumis, like higher states. There's those gurus that give us empowerments, teachings, transmissions. They're all worthy of our faith and respect. But then there's the root guru. The root guru is the one that helps you understand the nature of the mind. So the guru introduces you to the nature of the mind, and you see the nature of the mind. That's the root guru, especially in the Kagyu tradition. For example, Marpa's root guru was Naropa. Even though Marpa had many different gurus, Naropa became his root guru because he showed him the nature of the mind. Or Milarepa's root guru was Marpa, and Gampopa's root guru was Milarepa, and so on. So, for example, Gampopa had many different gurus, but his root guru became Milarepa. He received many teachings from many different teachers, but it was only through Milarepa that he realized the nature of the mind. So he became his root guru. And so that is the root guru. And that root guru is the embodiment of the three jewels. That is, the guru represents the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. And why do we see the guru that way? It's because through that root guru, we develop the qualities of the three jewels. We get it from the root guru. So therefore, he's the embodiment of the three jewels. And the guru is also the embodiment of the three roots. The three roots are the Lama, Yidam, and Dakini. Guru also is the essence of that. So the essence of the Lama, or the essence of blessings is the Lama. The essence of siddhis or accomplishments is the Yidam. And the essence of activities, enlightened activities, is the Dakini. And so the qualities of the blessings of siddhis, of activities, all come from the guru too, the root guru. And that's why he's the embodiment of the three roots. And if you follow the guru's instructions, you will attain experience and finally realization. So when you recognize that, when you see that, well, through the guru, I can actually eliminate the cause of samsara, self-grasping and ignorance, and I can become realized, I become completely enlightened, then real devotion to the guru arises in your mind. It's through the guru that I realize emptiness, that bodhicitta arises in my mind, that I myself become a Buddha. And the only way to ultimately become a Buddha is through the root guru. And there's really no other way. So that's why it's so important that we cultivate devotion to our root guru, because it is through this devotion that we receive the guru's qualities. And therefore, without that, we cannot receive those qualities. So here, in that text, it mentions the four kayas, snow mountain of the four kayas. So the guru's four kayas is like a snow mountain. So the four kayas are the Dharmakaya mind of the guru, which is the Buddha, and then the Sambhogakaya form of the guru, the deity, and the Nirmanakaya form of the guru appearing in many different ways. And then fourth, the essence kaya, or Svabhavika kaya, which means the union of those three kayas, meaning that that is like these qualities are also within you, inseparable from yourself. So all of these qualities are realized through the root guru. So the root guru represents those three kayas. And it's like a snow mountain. And so the snow mountain is the source of all rivers. If it melts, when the ice melts, then a river emerges from it. A stream flows down. So if you want that stream to flow, you need to melt the ice. Otherwise, it stays frozen and nothing flows. If there's no sun, then there will be no river flowing. If there's sun, then the ice will melt and the river will flow down. The river here represents the blessings. So the sun is your devotion. If the sun of your devotion shines on that snow mountain, then the ice will melt and cause the river of blessings to flow. So in other words, if you want to receive the blessings of the guru, you need to cultivate devotion. And that's the only method, really. And then the kind of devotion that we cultivate toward the root guru has to be unwavering and undeceptive, completely pure and genuine. Just like Milarepa's devotion for Marpa. Milarepa's devotion for Marpa was unwavering and sincere. No matter what Marpa did, Milarepa never lost his devotion. He always sustained his devotion. And in the end, Milarepa then received all of Marpa's qualities through his devotion. So ultimately, it is through his devotion that he attained enlightenment. So that's why devotion is so important in the Vajrayana. There is kind of an opening prayer verse that comes from the Nyingma tradition. And there it says, even though his qualities are equal to the Buddhas, his kindness is even greater to the Buddhas, as supplicate the root guru. So the kindness is even greater than the Buddhas. It means that to ourselves personally, even though his qualities are the same as the Buddha, to me personally, the guru is even kinder. And therefore, it's really important to have a really pure and a genuine faith and devotion, a belief in the guru. Then we can receive all of his qualities.
아야다 예바드 사자친 거래 사자친 심리 난과 양발은 남도된 진여서 심보도 되면 심리 난과 양발은 시탕 하나도 다르대 사자친 보이시는 아니 심지 내로시에 심지 내로 심지 내로시에 심지 내로 엄마 심코랑 엄마데 나는 다 답지시 김주시 근데 심코랑 엄마 내로도 뭐 동반이 오니 맞아 또니 사자친 보시然后多年生的东北抗疫没办到嘛，哦你被难看到，被难看到的，难看的看的里乱的里等的里我的些有嘛，那都是个难看，那有的吧，是吧？原来这里的双层也有抗疫嘛，用双层也有抗疫没，那个东北的难看到的是，心里难看到，다른 나라도 다른 생리들 난카다고도 나도 생리 원래 열었대 얘는 로울 마스 로울 주마스 남도 세 대시거든 로울 주마 남도 되네 남도를 되네 되는 안 좋더라 sen nelo mamata drupte nelo mamata nelo mamanga sanje shiba sanje simni sanje na simji na sanje ni se ti nelo kuma so drupte res namdo nyom drupte sen kon na kha ta le te nyom ba namdo de na kha ne yu de tin ba tin do na kha ten tin ge na kha ta ba na 좀 이제 신바니트 자카르야는 신바니트 자카르 나카테고 야 타바이나 드니 나카나나 샤르데비니 마다와 까마라도 하든 스 풍요요 어예 띠띵베 접송이나 가야미 바나이 통투고면요 어 나랑도 주 생기 내로는 신바니 있으나 나랑도 생기 내로 사제치 뭐 야나 sen 내로 아 자주 셈세야 다도 좀 줍대요 그래서 줍대 내로 나카나 이래 딥진 받다가 남도도 접대비 되는 친반이 내다다 친바 쳤다만 친바 진이 빠지고 나가 다생 시바는 저다 친이 친빈 친바 산징이 친바 산징이 남 친이 이시 줍대 이시 오 나한테 이시 시바도 따라 아 남식 이시 줍 남식도 이시니 다른 남식은 남도 마보 때문에 남식 차대로 남도 마보 때 남식 차대다 이시 줍습니다 다 남도의 파트 단은 나카 따위 중앙에는 다 이시 나카 따위 중앙에는 디셈비 내로 되는 것이 이시 남도 되면서 가디지 주고 있습니다 로마 잡도나는 송 기책들 배 고하고 세라zo 이미 이시라 세라zo 이미 생기 그런 뭐 내로 돈당은 돌아 있습니다 니 말이 생겨나죠 이미 있습니다 남도 가서 나주야 도세 그런 것도 니도 있으나 니는 니는 게 시바데 티네 티니 나서 따라 남시당 남도 라서 저다 이시세는 티니는 파 좋아들 이시 니는 데레 파 좋아하는 이시 니스님 자 다른 인진 박차되겠다 줍대 줍대 챙겨 얘를 파트원 이미 이시 있으면 비시 어텐투를 스타트 모든 생각을 내려놓는 시간 내려놓고 대탐진하고 공자 그리고 다 들으니 근데지 시엔 그냥 하고 소소 상담 생각 때문에 답지시네 남시세나 가리 이시세나 가리 인진세나 가리 니미세나 가리 또 답지시 또 답지시인데 그냥 하고 테스트 하 고시바레스 데스 상담 들지 공자 하고 거야 유를 고시바레스 하 뭐야 그래서 가만히 무슨 가서 법정시 하나 끼 검세도 끼 빠시 남의 가르쳐서 나도 생 검자 가르쳐 끼 빠다 그래서 되게도 있는데 그래서 딱지시 끼 검, 끼 빠검 야 신이 나가다 다른 말 때는 송이를 야세라는 송을 그래 겼다 나와도 한게 생 다른 나와서 나오는 같다 친절한 샘도 짜는 차고요 나보다 샘도 짜는 건 차고요 저단 상황도 다른 샘 정말 샘코랑 얘기를 하다 샘코랑 남들 막 동당을 두고요 말았다 나기 시박만 두고요 말 나기 시박만 나 나자는 요야 두고요 말이었어 저단 나오더라 생리도는 쭈뼛하다 잘했어 샘코랑 뭐 내려 그때는 쭈뼛하다 잘와 때는 가다 버리 생리도는 쭈뼛 하다 잘했어 저단 나온다 하고 생리도 쭈뼛 대답신 송진치만 일하면서 자세라는 거야. 그다 나와도 다랑 승리들이 쭈뼛하다. 대니신 송진 대답 대답 탐지 따라 대와도 동안 야가 쭈뼛 탐지 생각 나자이 하고 나자이 하고 되니 나한테 하고네 되니 무슨 맞을 바임 하고 다 돈이 돈도나야 돈이 돈도나 되니 생리들이 쭈뼛하다 잘해서 다 돈이 돈도나 되니 되니 다 좋아도요. 시비요레스. 대탐지 다 라면 미용하게 되는 거다. 라마 짜친불이 있어야 돼. 라마 근데다가 지치랑 공자 그리다. 냠냉데 지치고 다 치라는 누구다. 대파타나 친구는 근데 깔 닝거워. 메바데 부파 친구 시야 돼. 라마 깔 삐ծ어. 저야 되는 용티 보고다. 최소한 대타라는 리다. 뒤때는 나가 담 배조스. 배조스는 담 배조스는 또 휴비지. 냠니시 때니 무그스 에페 소완데 아트나게 탑시 찌다신 데데데니 갈레치 뇽아지 토야 쉔부 있어레스
Then next we come to the practice of Mahamudra. So it says, in the vast space of mind itself, if amassed clouds of thoughts have not dispersed, the planets and stars of twofold knowledge lack sparkle or will not appear. Thus earnestly strive for this non-conceptual mind. So for the practice of Mahamudra, so the practice of Mahamudra is really speaking about the nature of the mind. We're speaking here about the nature of the mind. And we analyze the nature of the mind. And when you meditate and look at the nature of your mind, you see an empty space-like nature. That is what we call a state of Mahamudra. And so emptiness here, it doesn't mean nothing there, there's nothingness, but it's like space, like the outer space. So when you look into outer space, you cannot determine exactly where really is the center or where is east and west, there's up and down. It's there, but it doesn't really have any direction or any boundaries. So that is like the nature of your mind. It is just like that, like space. And then, so it says here, the clouds of thoughts. So even though that's your true nature, it's like this open space, like the sky, it is temporarily obscured by clouds. If it is obscured by clouds, you cannot see the heavenly bodies, for example, like the sun and the moon, different planets, the stars in the sky. Cannot see any of that if there are many clouds in the sky. But when the clouds vanish, then you can see the clear sky. You see the sun and the moon and the different stars and so on. And so that seeing the sun and the moon, the different stars, is here called the twofold knowledge. So when there are thoughts in your mind, then that twofold knowledge is obscured. So then you cannot access the twofold knowledge within you. But when the thoughts of clouds have vanished, then you can see that twofold knowledge. We mentioned that before. It's the knowledge of knowing the true nature of things, and it's knowing everything that exists. We know it. So it's like a clairvoyant mind. It knows everything, and it's there, but it's obscured by the clouds of thoughts and afflictive emotions, the conceptual mind. That obscures your true nature, which we call bodhicitta, or we call it Mahamudra, or we call it the omniscient wisdom, the primordial wisdom. So there's, sometimes we call the mind primordial wisdom and sometimes consciousness. It's the same mind, but the consciousness is that state of mind where there are many thoughts, the conceptual mind. And that mind, this conceptual mind, obscures your inner wisdom. And when you separate from the conceptual mind, the mind becomes like a clear sky, and you can then clearly see the wisdom within you. So the planets and stars of which is your wisdom within you, that your primordial wisdom will then reveal themselves, you will then see it. There's one verse in the 7 verses of supplication to Tara for protection, and that explains that really nicely. This non-dual mind of primordial wisdom. It says there is the non-dual mind. So there's beings are bound no matter what they do because of their grasping at the concepts in the mind, a mind that is actually self-arisen and non-dual primordial wisdom. So sentient beings grasp at that mind, and therefore they don't see their true nature. So actually all appearances are self-projections. So that we call it a consciousness for as long as things appear in a dualistic way. So we don't see that appearances as our self-projections, but we perceive them in the world in a dualistic way. When you see your true nature, when your primordial wisdom reveals itself, then these dualistic perceptions will become purified, they will be gone, and you will see that everything is your own self-projection. And so we realize that by meditating and resting, looking at our true nature. So it's good to really reflect on what you heard today, these teachings, later on, and really think about what does this really mean to have a non-dual mind? What is this non-dual wisdom? What is primordial wisdom? We try to understand by reflecting on it. We call that kind of reflective or analytical meditation. It's also a form of meditation where you reflect on what you've learned. So how is my mind like space, and what is primordial wisdom, and so on? Really reflect on that. There's another verse in the 37 practices that says, appearances are your own mind. From the beginning, mind's nature is free from the extremes of elaboration. So the mind, all appearances are the reflections of your mind. So what appears is your own mind, meaning that what appears is the way it appears to you and does not possess any other existence. So it's your own perception. The way you perceive things is how you experience the world. And the objects themselves have no other self-existence. They don't exist on their own as a certain thing, but you perceive things as separate from you, as certain things, when actually they are nothing else but your own projections. So then that verse says, so if you know this, do not not grasping at a subject-object reality that is the Bodhisattva's practice. And so recognize that all appearances, all perceptions are your own mind. The way you perceive things is your own mind. When you realize that, you realize the empty nature of things, and you attain liberation. So that is what you should keep in mind. And the essence of, as you mentioned, realizing Mahamudra is guru devotion. So, and the guru gives you an instruction, and it's good to follow that instruction, to practice according to what the guru said. Because if you have devotion, you also have high regard for what the guru tells you, and then you will practice it. You will do that. Otherwise, no, it will be difficult to gain total realization.
Tatandi gomjan trenanchi sachingi chitiko rahin chi kaptondo chi chadero nazunga dinkona ti tatit chader. Yena yanga ungus nyamni sing litini chi le taba tambo le taba yana ko ha kote ji gomja tuya zuyongu yusare te mena yanga chi chosa dripa janse ya jurum tini an rogo teni hundo de nyamni chi so chi teni gomjan de tambo shene ni halap ni yuma tendechen kale kale ya jurum chin done yapoyongu yusare yes.
So now you have received this instruction on Mahamudra according to that root verse, and because it's quite brief, it seems to be quite a kind of a direct like instruction. But then to actually comprehend it, we have to really practice it. There may be someone who possesses pure, whose karma is pure, and they may be able to realize the meaning of Mahamudra by hearing it just naturally. But for the most part, we have to accumulate merit and purify obscurations and gradually progress on on the way to Mahamudra. Now, starting with meditation, like shamatha, calm abiding, and so on, and then gradually progressing on that path until we realize Mahamudra.
아예 땅아파트 호아리 호아테 손이 위에 노블 모람 지도마제나 그들이 되면 호아지 호한데 근데 스타트 책대 된다잖아 책대 초니세는 미끼 수남 거는 초사 미끼 수남 세대 나그 산초 심지 심부 거는 초사 바테리 심진기 치등에 고조스는 주반부가 내 거야 인핑 사드 바테리다 수 미끼 수남 초착을 미미 이히 초 시나다랑 아프다라 곰자야고 샘그 내로로 다는 곰자 근데 되게 때는 미끼 수남 미미 수남 초스 미미 이히 초스 대답을 초니 유인지 배 유인지 노블라면 배 유인지 노블 히바드나 콜라 용디 강을 강도 그 진트비하게 용디 유장 드니 telको 모람 대야kan 서더시 잠싱 텔 산네 드니 고 모람 데네 만 제벤 유베서 유인지 노세 배 디나이 손이 당하게 손이 싸이게 수남 때 짜친 거로 유인지 노었다 그래서 대답 유인지 노었텔라 드니 모람 데네 서더세 제벤 요하나 틴텔 모아치 수납 초짜친 거 싸게 하는 모람 짜친 거 지거래서 모함을 자침보세는 근데 내면 주고요레스 모함을 자침보 가르치고 나한테 따라 수나무 촉감에 사는 신기 통기 지금 지도 초사이가 봐인데 모한테 대답을 보니까 신기 통기 지도 모르겠어 그들이 모아야 그들이 하장 기침 버리더니 지가 모wen 닌딘도 고하게 닌딘 주지 뒤책도 하고 닌딘은 이 개침보들 앞에 인기 민지 때를 잡잡치는 모르겠어 아 납침보 근데 인사레스 저당 모아들 따라 돈이 그 뜻인거군 화세 지금 돈이 그 뜻인거군 화세 그래야 그 사제 진보 내로 또 되나 그 무슨 넘버 뭐도 보고는 모아하는 거였다 이나 가서 내 담보 빠이나 타야 무슨 넘버 또 받쳐요 무슨 넘버 또 받으리 무슨 넘버 뭐도 쓰는 라니 모아 라니 수능 사파고 모사게 연 모주 그저라 이 말을 봐 돈이 그 뜻인거군 모아스 나는 솔레 담보가 이제 나랑 그 수나 사파고라니 사지 공부 개와트비야 모사기 여 신진도 믿어요 내 담비로 봐뭐 됐더니 맞아 무슨 남발도 봐뭐 자꾸 얘나야 다때 밑바 자친 보더니 방문했더니 배니 뒤집어냈더니 배는 그래 나랑 그 소다 샤마스는 다 주시해야 명령지야 제인가 대다가 김수나 탐지다 심지 틈지기 지더니 봐 생땡이 방뭐 다 기어서 나랑 기어야 본점성사 가와도 기부건 이 디스만 심지 통지치도 방모 대답 처리를 해서 뭐세들 방모 나한테 레와자요 오늘 개와 접었을 때 나수나게 토버리잖아 오늘 드디지는 나라피 뭐 이임뱅아 약고 연결해서 된데 상관은 되잖아 이 방모에 그 답도 가야 맞아 비친 근데 디잘라는 나한테 봐 기어나 파이어서 레와 가야 맞아 배나 그리고 내가 쳤터야 그래요 가야 미봐 저는 나는 수나 토야 그래요 가야 미봐 이 기업 접할 때는 나는 내가 토야 이게 가야 미 실기 함께 치도 바크라우스에 약고 이런 효과 상가 진안이 때문에 뭐 그래서 임때를 양답을 맞춰봐
And then next is the last one, the dedication. As for the two accumulations, the wish-fulfilling gem, if it is not polished with aspirations, the necessary and desired results will not happen. Thus, earnestly strive for this final dedication. So there are these two accumulations here. It is the accumulation of merit and wisdom. And so we want to, in order to attain enlightenment, we need those two kinds of accumulations and kind of ways of creating merit, and that must be all preceded by a motivation of bodhicitta. So then with the motivation of bodhicitta, we first create the conceptual accumulation of merit, the first one of those two. And that is, for example, doing things like making offerings to the three jewels or helping sentient beings and so on. And the second one is called the non-conceptual accumulation of wisdom, which is to practice meditation, resting in the nature of the mind. These two accumulations are like a wish-fulfilling jewel. A wish-fulfilling jewel can bestow us whatever we wish, all of our wishes. And the way we kind of activate that wish-fulfilling jewel is by polishing it with aspirations. So we polish that wish-fulfilling jewel, going to be rub that jewel with aspirations, and then our results, our desired results will arise. And so here, it's called a wish-fulfilling jewel because the merit that comes from our aspirations, our pure aspirations, is vast. So that's why it's like a wish-fulfilling jewel. It can bestow us anything because the aspiration, the intention is so vast. And so it must be a pure intention, therefore. If the motivation is pure, the result will be also pure. So how can we develop such a pure dedication? It is just like in the beginning, when we first cultivated the motivation, we do it for all sentient beings. And so also when we dedicate, we give it away to all sentient beings. We dedicate it for them. That's most important. Therefore, it says, earnestly strive in this ultimate dedication. So we have to make an effort in that because that's most important. This is the most profound way, the best way to dedicate. So generally, when we dedicate, there's different kinds of dedications. And so the ultimate, this final ultimate dedication is the dedication that is free from the three spheres, meaning that it comes from within a state of emptiness or a state of Mahamudra, where there is no thought of self and other. So for beginning practitioners or ordinary people, there is the difference between a recipient of our offering, and then we are the one who making that offering, and then the object that we're offering. So that's the three spheres. In the beginning, we kind of function, we operate in those three spheres. But then ultimately, when we rest in emptiness, there is no difference. There's no kind of delineation between myself, the giver, the recipient, and the gift I'm giving. It's all one and the same. It's all myself, really. And so that becomes a pure dedication. So that's how your dedication becomes vast and all-encompassing. So now we have practiced the Dharma together for 3 days. We have had teachings and practiced the Dharma. And in the end, we bring to mind all of that virtue, that merit, and we dedicate it for all sentient beings. So we rejoice and think that this was excellent. I'm dedicating this for all sentient beings. And so pure dedication also means that there is no hope of receiving anything in return. For example, you may think that if I do this, then maybe that will help me down the road, or somebody else will then do something for me later on. So without any such hopes, without really holding on to or trying to own our own virtue, just give it away, just like giving away an object. When we give away something to someone else, we just donate it, and we have no hopes of getting anything in return for that. This is how we dedicate ideally. So that is what we call a pure or authentic dedication. If it's really just for the benefit of beings and without any hope for ourselves.
Oh yeah, teni tereng anzo ta chinsamte shindriba yinsi. Ta tarang anzo ti yamasum nasiko le yunya. Tanga le yuncha le kopre wani te yunya. Chupin zego anzo tereng tanju. Lekpandriba yinsi. Teni tarang anzo ta nga yungdung rao chi yabori. Teni ta limora kable mambo chabiyore. Able takin be some mambo chitini chinan so lo kwa jap chuche then nyam yo se zitini be poli ma be gawo jones ni ina gebir na ne bete so pinto ya ku chong thi tene nga simba ya ki po chong zupo ya de wo chong nam yu nga sko lind li yong sam se de yang na ni de chamo ran simba shege do ina nga ta da hira chang ma song ne be ji po chong simba be ge yang bu de ji po chong de de chinan chama be tu ji che se
So that completes the teachings here, teachings of 3 days here in Scotland. And I want to thank everyone for organizing this event. It's really turned out to be wonderful. And especially Lee was really putting a lot of effort into this. And many of you helped her and many of you joined in. So that's it's really turned out wonderful because of that. And I'm very happy about it. I'm very happy that Ina was able to translate. That was very beneficial for everyone. And I just had a very good time, and also I felt physically really well. So I have to say honestly, I'm always a bit scared to go to Scotland because the weather sometimes is a little bit cold. And I'm not too much used to the cold, but now this time actually I wasn't that cold, and also physically I felt really well and I was really happy. And anyways, thank you everyone.
그렇잖아. 그래 가서 담보 마 hoa 모람 다른 가서 hoa 지인스 교사 같은데.
So now we will dedicate together our roots of virtue.
Sunam deya tamje zebanye tomne nye bedana panze de jeganam che balam chobaye ziban solen roa roa risho enjam parapaye chetan chimba tang kunda zambo deyan deyan de da kunje jisa daloy Gewan de da tam jera de ngo sanje ko sanyi be chen la da chinyi men je din be chen la da gendo me sin de be chen la je je dan hui yin mo lan de bai jo da dan kun de tan je Yüzüm de zafadan yübe give zavan de dadan simgen damge nüdürlaname Yanda bazı bir can çürün boce do bacı Şivza kumze yakın cin çiçeci Dendren nela vantun rıkomba Rencen barce dimba sindaba Şedre tüzan gombin zincirci Cancı simcörün bo Majin banan jijanje jibanyan bani bayan kone kondam beoyu oy mani bemeo oy mani bemeo oy mani oy mani bemeo oy Thank you very much, everybody. I wish you always you happy, healthy, can continuous learn and practice Buddha Dhamma. Okay. Mm. That's all. Thank you, Inala.
Thank you, Ina.
Mm.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. 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 Okay. Now, snap. Snap. I have blessed things for you. Where is my blessed things? Oh, here, here. Come here. One by one. One by one. Okay. Okay.
Ina, thank you so much.
Yay.
Let
Thank
you
you.
go and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone, for joining and closing
Oh,
meeting.
great. It's great to see you.
I need this.